Welcome to day 3 of bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message. I am your host, Laura Lake, and I'm joined today by my guest co-host, Katharina.
Hello.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce me, you're going to introduce you, and then during that time, I'm going to share the live on social media.
Okay.
So for those who have never met me, my name is Laura Lake. I stand for what I call courageous connection. And really, in business, we talk about getting people to know you, like you, trust you, when really, I believe it starts from the inside out. Many of us are message entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And so I need to get to know, like, and trust that old version of me just as they are. And that takes massive courage to be able to look at that and love that. And then we work through that to be able to get to know, like, and trust our audience so that they naturally get to know, like, and trust us. So it's all about those things that we don't like to talk about, emotions, which you'll see coming up time and time again today, about connection, about courage, about all of it. So Katharina, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a holistic coach and healer, and I'm also an artist. My work's here behind me. I really am passionate about helping people step into their God-given purpose of what they're here for them to own and claim that inner self, that who they truly are underneath all the nonsense and the emotions, as you thought, of all the things that have kind of been the things that they've been told, the beliefs that they've been carrying, and to move through all that so they can be the beacon of light and share that with the world and all the goodness that they have to offer. So that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm so happy to be here and to meet all of our wonderful guests and see what they're all about.
Awesome. Thank you, Katharina. Yes, emotions, because it's the thing people don't like to talk about. So our first guest is behind the scenes. Kevin, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Since we were talking about artwork, I do love the artwork behind you.
Thank you.
Did you make it?
Compliments on it. I didn't. I found it on not a company I'm associated with it, but it's called Zuri Furniture. It's in Dallas, Texas. And they had a bunch of white, cool furniture that I got. And they had this beautiful background picture. And before I built my home and my office, they had kind of this setup with bookshelves on the side, but you can barely see. And I was like, that's what I need to do. So that's what we did.
Nice. So I do like to start each interview just by shaking things up. I don't want your pre-programmed responses. I want to get to know who you are, Kevin, behind the business, behind the message, all of that. So if you're ready, I want to ask you, if you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, I know it's hard, but in 3 words, what would you love other people to say?
They would say driven, compassionate, humble.
Ooh, driven, compassionate, and humble in my messy writing as I try to do it really quickly. So, of course, the follow-up is, with these 3 words, the driven, the compassionate, and the humble, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
That's a great question.
Thanks.
Nobody's ever asked me that before. So we'll get into blind blaming in a minute, but I think that a lot of times when people have unresolved problems that they can't seem to fix, they're usually, what I like to say is, it's not that people are failing at, they're not failing at solving their problems. They're succeeding at solving the wrong problems perfectly.
Yes.
And so when it comes to how I wanted to be, one of the things I was taught years ago was not to have so much of a to-do list as much as a to-be list to live by. And my to-be list is now fit, free, and focused. And going back to those 3 words, when it comes to humble, I always wanted to become very rich and wealthy without being a big jerk. We've all met that guy. And I actually read a book called The Mountain Is You, which is an excellent read for anybody listening. Yeah,
it's
you got
beside me, but it's too far to get nicely.
It's an incredible book, especially like the first chapter on self-sabotage, where they talk about that identity. And sometimes you'll self-sabotage yourself by trying to not be that person for whatever it is you're doing. Compassionate, if you talk to any customer, client, friend, I'm a big helper. My friends jokingly call it Kevin mode. And I have to ask, my favorite question to ask, after unfortunately, a couple of failed relationships is, do you want me to fix it or do you want me to listen?
Ooh,
Which I found a very powerful relationship tool that's worked very well in a relationship that's going really well after a year. And then driven, I've always wanted to be more successful, as we'll get into my story, even when I sold my two companies a couple of years ago, which is what led me to create Blind Blaming and write the book. Because a friend of mine, I came home thinking, well, I'm kind of done. I have enough to retire. And at the after party, when we closed, my friend just simply said, so Kev, what's next? And I had to think about it for a while, and it bugged me. And I was like, I don't know. So came into my office, put what's next on my little virtual whiteboard. And I actually saw a book on the corner that said how to write a TED Talk. And that's how this whole journey began, because we started the concept as a TED Talk. I hired some writers because I've spoken on so many things all over the years, all over the world, that I wasn't really sure what would be my one idea worth sharing. So we went through this exercise of my whole life, which was really cool to do, and all the life lessons you have. And we settled on a story that I'll share in a minute when we get into the interview.
Yeah.
That helped us come up with the topic and the framework. But it's driven me to help people even more, because when I got my start in my professional coaching career, it was a very particular niche, what I went to school for. I'm actually an audiologist. I'm actually a hearing and balance specialist. And I went into practice development, like helping practice owners grow their practices in that field, and became more of a life coach and a business coach for those entrepreneurs, and learned a lot about how to run a business. And what I found is a lot of the things I've been teaching for almost 30 years now work in every business. And the life coaching that I was doing for some of these owners work for most individuals, if they're willing to change the way they do things, which is always hard for all of us. So does that help? Did that answer the question?
Of course it does. And you already see where I was going with this. Because once we get how the words come into your key message, then of course the story starts coming out of why this message is important. So I'm just going to straight up ask you, why is this message of the blind blaming? And I love the to-be list. I'll have to touch back on
the to-be list, I call it not stealing, but ethically swipe and redeploy. I learned that from a man named Brendan Burchard.
Oh, I love
another great guy. Yeah, Brendan's the one. It was in his book on high performance habits that I got that from, but it really hit home. Again, mine's just fit, free, and focused. I want to be fit. I've lost 40 pounds this year. We'll get into that next and some of the blind blaming stuff. And then I want to be free, which means I want to be free from worry, which means I had to stop blaming and complaining, which we'll again get into in a little bit. And then I want to be focused. I want to be very clear about what I want to accomplish, who I want to help, and how I want to be for those that I love in my life.
Mm-hmm. So why the blind blaming? Why not just stick with the audiologist? Stay there.
Well, I love audiology. I'll always be there for them. I'm sure some audiologists will catch it because that's most of my following at the moment. But it's been amazing to me to see other people clinging on to this message and saying how much it's helped them, because we tested it for about 1.5 years before I actually wrote the book with podcast and the TED Talk. But I think I'd like to start with just the story of blind blaming and how it came to be. So when I was 10 years old, I was a phenomenal baseball player. I had a batting average of 550. Now, if you don't know anything about baseball, Babe Ruth in his heyday had a batting average of 394. So I wasn't just good, I was great, to the point where my dad had other coaches, parents, even a couple of scouts that he knew say, listen, you really need to start working with this kid hard on his mindset, his swing. He could definitely play the next level up. He can also play high school ball, definitely college, and possibly even the pros if you start developing him now. And guess what? I was standing right next to my dad hearing all this. So I had dreams of playing for the Texas Longhorns here in Austin, Texas, where I live, and then also playing for the Texas Ranger and showing Nolan Ryan that I could hit any fastball he could throw across the plate. And so we spent that entire offseason, my 10-year-old summer, practicing, and the fall and the spring as well, working on my mindset with my dad, how to play to win, things like that. But when I went into the 11-year-old league, something changed. I got up to bat and I started missing. In fact, I didn't get one hit the entire year. And I struck out. I went from literally 0 to 0. I went from a 550 batting average to literally 0. And you can probably guess what I heard from the stands. Hey, come on, kid, play to win this time. Keep your head in the game. Let's work on your swing a little bit. And there was always that lecture from my dad on the way home. Those that are listening that are parents know what I'm talking about. And if you have kids, there's even some stats in my book that talk about why most student athletes quit. And a lot of it has to do with the parents pushing them too hard. Yeah. My dad was just doing what he thought was right because he knew how great I could be. Even today, he was over for Christmas and he says, yeah, when Kevin was 10 years old, he was the best ball player I've ever seen. And then his attitude went to hell. And I'm like, Dad, I just told you about the book that I wrote, and that has nothing to do with what happened. So I went into the 11-year-old league because I could still, and 12-year-old league because I could still field pretty well. And I ended up playing one more year, but I only played 2 games. I sat on the bench that next year watching others play the game I so desperately wanted to play. Aww. And while the parents were blaming me, eventually I started blaming myself and thinking I was a complete failure. And I know some of the people that are watching today they've all felt like a complete failure. I just had that, unfortunately, at 10 years of age. So here's what happened, though. 2 weeks after I quit, I said, I've had enough. I told my parents I don't want to do this anymore. I suck at baseball. I can't do it. In a fluke eye test, we just found out that I couldn't see. I couldn't see the ball. That's all that was wrong. The eye doctor literally said, sorry, the kid's practically blind without glasses. And it all came to be. And it's interesting because I call this concept blind blaming, because here's the problem. At no point during that 3 years did the parents in my life stop blaming me for something that was ultimately out of my control completely. And this is the problem that I have a lot with self-help books in the self-help industry, which is what led me to write the book, Beyond Blind Blaming, is that this is at the core of every unresolved problem, whether it's in your company, your personal life, your health, your wealth. And what we've done over the last couple of years is developed a framework to help people stop blind blaming and get to the real root cause. As I said when we started, people aren't failing at solving their problems. They're solving the wrong problem perfectly. And what I found is if we can get to the root cause of whatever unresolved issue that you're suffering from, it creates a ripple effect across people's life. And we're not looking for a bunch of things, although sometimes over time it turns into a few different things. We're looking for that one thing that creates a ripple effect across their life. And we've been doing it in a lot of different professions now for over a year and a half. I wasn't planning on writing a book, but when I started sharing the message to all my podcast guests the last year and a half, some of them very successful authors like John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and some other successful authors. Some of them even went so far as to say, man, I think you have a duty to write this book. This could change millions of lives, which is what led to our mission. We're going to try to help 10 million people across the world get to the bottom of their unresolved issue to help empower their success, however they define it.
Ooh, I like that end part, however they define it.
Yeah, so I think that's important.
No worries. How would you define success in your life now that you're retired but not retired?
I want people to think that money's the most important thing, but I do feel it affects everything that's important. And I wanted to have enough money to be able to do the things I wanted to do on a daily basis, not have other people tell me what to do. And I wanted to help who I wanted to help and have some control over my life. Because I found the more money that I have, the more people I can help. And then next was to have a partner that I love and adore, because I think you can get rich with finances, but I think when you're truly wealthy is when you have something money can't buy. And over the last year, I've managed to find a person who loves me very much, and I love her very much. But I just took a new philosophy on this relationship. And it's funny because I've always told her since the very beginning, listen, if I continue to do the things that I do in the beginning, there will never be an end. It's kind of like when people are like, in the beginning of a relationship, you're all in love, you're jumping around, and people are saying, can you take out the trash? Of course I can take out the trash. I love you. We're totally in love. And then 7 years later, can you take out the trash? I'm not your janitor. And that's what changes. So if you keep doing the things you did in the beginning, there will never be an end. And what's really funny is I took her to a talk in Vegas where Tony Robbins was there. And I totally stole that story from Tony Robbins. I want to give him full credit on this because it's live. And he says it right there. He's like 2 feet from our faces. And he says it. And she looks at me like, really? And I was like, he totally stole that from me. but it was a powerful message for me. So that's what success looks like for me is, and then third is just being able to help people find that root cause of something that they're really struggling with. And it's interesting. I just got a really great video testimonial from somebody I met at that same conference at Funnel Hacking Live. And there was people like Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, some really bigwig speakers. And the testimonial I got was like, hey, listen, out of all the speakers there, my 10 minutes with Kevin changed my life, because within 10 minutes, he had gotten to the root cause of my business problem and helped me with a new business model that has completely transformed the way that we're running our business now. And it was incredible. And all I did was use the framework that we're going to talk about on how to get past or beyond blind blaming today.
Ooh, I have to show you this. Nancy's like, great session. Yeah, congratulating you. Awesome. I love when we get that feedback live.
You do. Love it.
So, Kevin, I want to know a little bit about so many things, but you mentioned you have a book. Can you show us the book again?
Sure, absolutely.
It was really quick, and I'm a visual person.
Beyond Blind Blaming. And you'll know, I love the cover because it's got the people pointing at it. And I don't know if you can see the last one. It's designed purposefully. So it's got a woman pointing at a man pointing at a woman pointing at a man, and then a man pointing at a woman, and then the woman is eventually pointing at herself. Because I think what happens is when you start blind blaming things and you're blaming the wrong thing, and I'll talk about how we get there, because there's something we should talk about called the blame loop that we all get stuck in.
Yeah.
Eventually, just like I did in my baseball story, I started feeling like a complete failure, and I started blaming myself. And it had nothing to do with my motivation, had nothing to do with my swing. I just couldn't see the darn ball.
Well, let's go there. Tell us more about that. Tell us about the
yeah. So the blame loop is like having a puzzle. Let's just talk about blind blaming first. So blind blaming is like having a puzzle and trying to solve it without all the pieces. In fact, when I do my live sessions, we actually we have a puzzle, and I give the brave participant from the audience a puzzle with 2 of the 6 pieces missing. And I pretend like I'm an employer, and I give them the missing pieces. And I was like, look, I just need you to put together this puzzle. It's super easy. And I kind of walk away from the stage, and I watch them as they put the puzzle together, and then they start looking for the other pieces. Some people will look under the desk. They will then they'll look at me, and I'm like, put my hands up. It's part of the exercise. And then I start talking to them, and I say things that you've all heard, whether it's you as an employer, you as a parent, you in your relationship, or you as an employer, sometimes you as an employee. When somebody says, what's your problem? This is such an easy task. What are you doing? And then you turn to somebody else and say, I don't think this person's going to make it. They clearly can't even handle the most simple task. But I see it every day in business and relationships and health and wealth, anything you can think of where there's an unresolved problem. But I want you to think about when you've had an employer that asked you to do a simple task, but they didn't give you everything you needed to get it done.
Yep.
And then you just keep spinning your wheels. So it's blind because you can't see the real problem. It's blaming because when you go through this blame loop, which I'll go through some of the phases in the blame loop real quick, you instinctively go back to blame. And there's a lot of cognitive biases that we deal with. We don't have time to go into them now, but I do want to go through the blame loop.
Yeah.
I wish I could show. If anybody wants a copy of it, my email is kevin@blindblaming.com. I will send you the graphics from the book if you'd like. We're in the process of getting our website set up and everything with some free resources. But for now, just email me at Kevin, Kevin, @blindblaming.com, and I'll give you a copy of the blame loop. Maybe we can put some resources at the bottom of this when we record it.
Yeah.
But what happens when you're stuck in the blame loop is you start off with something that I call your behavioral bedrock. And so this is what shapes our behaviors from our past successes, which are sometimes an issue, and our past failures. And it builds layer upon layer upon layer. Every time you go through the blame loop, it's like a vicious cycle that keeps going. It creates another layer of that behavioral bedrock. And that creates what we call preconceived perceptions. These are like filters, they're sunglasses that distort the way that we see the world. And it makes blind blaming and other things that we go through or complaining seem perfectly logical. And again, sometimes it's not us. This is where I have a problem with self-help, because a lot of times it's pointing the finger at us. And many times it is us, but many times it's not. And those preconceived perceptions, in fact, there's an exercise we're putting together live where we're going to have people wear goggles that turn the world upside down. and ask them to kick a ball and sit in a chair. It's hilarious. I saw it at the rodeo and I was like, this is so great. It's preconceived perceptions. It's totally in live person. This will be a great exercise to get on video and show people. But, people are just trying to sit in a chair and they can't see the chair and they fall down. But what happens is when we have the way that we view the world, it turns into what I call receptive rigidity. And receptive rigidity is where you totally think you're open to new ideas and somebody's presenting something to you and you're in your head, you're just like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's totally going to work. I see with coaching clients, this is the benefit of video when I'm sharing with what they need to do to be more successful in whatever we're working on, their life, their business, their relationship. And you can just see it. They're lightly, I don't think so. Even though we think we're perfectly open to new ideas, the behavioral bedrock, the preconceived perceptions keep us from seeing it. It's kind of like the blame is like being on a merry-go-round that you think you can jump off any time, but that centrifugal force keeps us stuck, even though we think we can jump off. And that leads to the nastiest disorder in this blame loop called insight invisibility. Insight invisibility is a nasty disease of certainty. And what it does is it keeps you from seeing new ways of doing something or solutions to the problem that you really haven't diagnosed correctly anyway. And when you go through those stages, that's what leads to blind blaming. And the reason I wrote the book on blind blaming is because I call it the keystone of chaos in the blame loop. Because if we can stop blind blaming, we break free from the cycle. And we have cool names from other things. Behavioral bedrock is your foundation of failure. I don't want to ruin the book because I'd like to give people a free copy.
Oh, you're not ruining it. You're just like, tell me more.
Oh, yeah. So it's really cool to see. But this has actually been proven. There's a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution by Thomas Kuntz. I didn't know it at the time. We mentioned it in my TED Talk, but it's the most quoted book in history. And what this guy did is he studied researchers. And what he found is when the researchers were doing their studies and the results of those studies resulted in things that they thought would happen, everything was fine. But when they started getting results that were outside of their way of thinking or the results they thought they were going to get or their behavioral bedrock, as we've called it today, it's almost like the data didn't exist.
Yes.
So when you go through the blame loop, it literally becomes physiologically impossible for you to see solutions because you're stuck in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the worst part. The people around you who you go to for advice that are part of your sphere of influence, people you work with, your family, your friends, they're stuck in the blame loop too. And so when we get into the solution, the framework we created to break free from the blame loop, which I call the RCD method, part of that is getting out of that sphere of influence. So that's the blame loop.
I'm feeling very called out in the blame loop.
And it's interesting. When I was writing, I was like, oh, that's me. I actually wrote it for myself because I was struggling with some things like the relationship. And when we started, I was blind blaming, oh, that girl's crazy. I see it with customers. That customer's crazy. That patient is crazy when we work in the medical field. And like, really, I don't know if they're that crazy. Have you looked at your processes and the way that you're doing things? And I always get, what do you mean? I was like, wrong answer. So a lot of times we're just blaming other people, other things without really realizing what's going on.
Yeah.
So I have a curious question. So you mentioned the RCD method is part of that, is getting out of the sphere of influence. Does that mean you gotta chuck your family or like?
Well, I think you need to realize when other people are stuck in the blame loop with you. So the book is divided actually into 3 sections. Awareness. That's where you're aware of blind blaming. I encourage people to stop blaming and complaining because it's a bad habit. In fact, the challenge I'll give to all of our watchers and listeners today is this is my challenge for you. It's a 30-day challenge. Try to go 30 days without blaming or complaining about anything. And then every time you catch yourself doing it, your 30-day starts over.
Oh,
so here's the fun part. So I've done that. Now this one I've done for years, like 10 years. And it'll never fail. Everybody's got my email, kevin@blindblaming.com. I will get an email or a text message from someone and it says, hey, I did it. And I'm like, well, who the heck are you? And what did you do? Just totally oblivious. I mean, we're talking 6 months later. I finished your 30-day challenge. I'm like, oh, okay. Congratulations. What has it done for you? And the things that I'm getting when I ask them, what has it done for you? I hear things like, it's completely reduced the stress in my life. I now focus on solutions. I now take responsibility. It's really fun to see. In fact, in the book, we have an email address we've set up because, again, our goal and mission is to help 10 million people get to the root cause of an unresolved problem they have in their life, so it creates a ripple effect, not just across their life, but across society as a whole. That's our mission. And breakthrough at blindblaming.com is where we're starting to get these stories as we're sharing the book. But I'll go back to the RCD method. It stands for reflect, connect, and decide. So reflect is where you're aware of blind blaming, blaming and complaining. But there's also something that we created in that reflect stage. I won't go into too much detail on it, but it is called the ODNA analysis. We're trying to so I'm a big fan of words matter. And instead of calling things problems, to me, problems seem permanent. We've all got problems. But if you start calling them obstacles, I think it makes a difference. And I found it in my coaching all the time. And I hear it from clients all the time that are like, I really like calling this an obstacle because now I feel like I can overcome it. I can go around it. And the obstacle DNA stands for obstacle deep nexus analysis. And what we do in this section is we go through 5 areas in people's lives or their business. The first one is health. And I'll tell you another story. I think we've got time. I think I'm doing okay on time for once. So the story I have is from an individual, a man who was struggling with his marriage. His wife was very frustrated with him because he forgot to pay her health insurance, which was kind of the last straw for her. He had a growing business and it was growing like crazy, but it had kind of stalled a little bit. They were starting to lose clients. He was blaming his partner. He was blaming his employees. His partner was so frustrated with him, along with his employees, he actually hired gosh, I'm going completely blank. He hired a ADD coach because he thought he had ADHD, and so did his team. And so the ADD coach, within about 6 months, said, look, I don't think you have ADHD or ADD. I think something else is going on here. And so she sent him to his physician, and he went to his physician. His physician said, well, you suffered from ADD your whole life, right? And he said, no. And I wish people would stop saying this. I don't know what they're talking about. It's getting really frustrating. But yes, I am forgetting things. I'm not really sure what's going on. And she goes, well, let me run a test. And it turns out, and again, his team was like, you need to use a better planner. His personal coach was like, let's get you a productivity system. Let's teach you how to block out your calendar. Other people were saying, you've got to take more responsibility. You've got to take extreme ownership, which are some of the other books. It turns out he had sleep apnea, chronically exhausted. And by the way, that man was me. Although my marriage failed, once I fixed that, everything fell into place. All of a sudden, I was getting things done. I wasn't forgetting to do things. Once I got on a sleep apnea machine, which is not fun, especially when you're dating and you're now newly single. That's another day. It gets very frustrating. So when we go into this ODNA, this deep nexus analysis, we go over health first. And I'm finding a lot of people have problems with their hormones, because I am not a big fan of people taking medical advice from TikTok. I do like going to highly trained and successful physicians. And sometimes we need to try different physicians to find somebody who can really get to that root cause of our health. So health is the first strand in that ODNA, deep nexus analysis. We're trying to find some things that work together. The next one is purpose. I've worked with a lot of people, especially a couple of professional athletes who I can't mention just because obviously they don't want to know. But we found out when they finish their career, they're a little lost. And their money's going down. They're seeing it kind of dwindle. They're used to living the lifestyle they had before. And there's a couple, I use one example in the book. Of course, I changed the name. But when I said, what's your purpose? And he said, again, my favorite answer, what do you mean? I was like, well, you got to find a reason to get up out of bed every morning. And so a lot of times they don't have a purpose. It's kind of hard to structure their day, or they start dealing with burnout, which we've all heard about. Or they start focusing on the wrong things and let other things control their life. But we got him refocused on his purpose, which was helping children and creating a couple of things that helped him regain his sense of purpose and move away from professional athlete mode. It changed his life. And then we have growth. And this is where we talk about having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. People with fixed mindsets see intelligence as fixed. And there's some amazing research done by a woman named Carol Dweck. I see you guys shaking your head because I'm sure you're familiar with her. But if you have a growth mindset, you don't take feedback as a personal attack, which is why we now start having people read my first couple of chapters of my book where they stop blaming, complaining to focus on solutions. And we have them watch a TED Talk on a growth versus a fixed mindset to help them with, listen, when you first start a new job, you're going to get some feedback. It's not a personal attack. You have to welcome it and say, thank you for letting me know. Now I can do a better job. People with a fixed mindset are like, guy doesn't know what I'm doing. Does he have any idea how hard I'm working here? And they take it as a personal attack. Plus, they don't see a way for them to learn to do new things. And then we go into relationships, and not just a personal relationship, but relationships you have with all of your other employees, your cohorts, however you want to say it, the people in your lives. How's the quality of that relationship? And then finally, resources. Do you have the tools that you need to be successful? Just like having all the puzzle pieces that I mentioned before to solve the puzzle. And so once we do that, we usually find one or two things that we need to dig a little deeper on, and that leads us to connect. So as I said before, R is for reflect. And the big problem with the self-help industry and trying to share this with others that are in our sphere of influence is they're stuck in the same blame loop we are. So the next stage is connect. And that's where we recommend you hire a professional coach, whether it's a life coach, business coach, somebody that can give you an objective opinion. And I do like coaches rather than consultants, because in my opinion, consultants tell you what you already know and they charge you a bundle of money. A coach sees how you can be or who you can be, going back to that to be list. And I'm also a big fan of mastermind groups. When I've done my podcast over the last year and a half, and the Beyond Blind Blaming podcast is launching here in a few weeks. And we've interviewed probably 40 successful authors and people. It's been an amazing experience. I can't wait to get it out there. One of my favorite questions to ask is, how do you invest in yourself? And a lot of them love to read. A lot of them listen to podcasts, but almost every single one was like, well, I've had a coach. And I love mastermind groups. Mastermind groups, for those of you who don't know what they are paid groups that you can go where everybody's very motivated to be there. I'm not a big fan of networking groups because, in my opinion, people who pay attention. And I also give some things in the book about how to get the most out of a coaching program or a mastermind group. So once you've gone through the ODNA, you've reflected, you found that one thing or two things you need to work on, then you present it to the coach and a group outside of your sphere of influence to make sure that you know what you should do. And it may be a little different. The next letter is D for decide. Now in the book, I won't cuss on here because you asked me not to, but it's called MFD, make an effing decision. And that came from a coaching client of mine that I had. I'm gonna give her full credit. Her name's Kayla, and she's given me permission to use her name. We were on a coaching call and she was hemming and hawing. She'd done her research. We'd taken her through the framework and she was debating on a couple of loans from different places. And she's like, what do you think I should do? I mean, I've been researching this for a month. And I just told her flat out, I said, you need to make an effing decision. I didn't use the word effing either. It was very direct. And she said, okay. And she put her head down. It's like, all right, I think I need to go to work. And I was like, fine. So end of the call, the next month she gets on and she's all excited. I'm like, well, how are things going? She's like, man, I'm MFDing all over the place. You've changed my life. Even my husband's noticed I'm not stalling on things. I'm like, wait. What are you talking about? MFD? She's like, making effing decision. I'm making effing decisions every day, but I've made some mistakes, but I've overcome them. But at least I'm moving forward now. And I was like, wow, Kayla, that's awesome. Do you mind if I use that in my book? And I had to do a little chapter on bad words and make sure everybody's comfortable with that and why I'm using it to prove a point. And we're going to have an all ages appropriate edition and a religious edition. So we'll be set there. But I'm surprised how many people it really hits home, because once you've got all the information you need to make an effing decision to move forward and try something. Otherwise, you just stall. How many people do you know that just research, or they go to conference after conference after conference and they never do anything? Yeah, I'm a big fan. There's a book by a guy named Masterson. It's amazing. It's an older book called Ready, Fire, Aim.
Yes.
Excellent book. I drive people crazy. I'm a big reader, but it's an excellent book. But that's what it's about. Once you've done the research, you've identified a couple of things to work on, you've shared it with people outside your sphere of influence to find out if that's what they think the real problem is. And now you've got to make a decision. I'm talking within 60 seconds of hearing what your coach or your mastermind group says. And we've heard things like, when people are in a mastermind group, there was one person who kept trying to hire new salespeople. And she was constantly hiring salespeople because there were low standards, because she just didn't want to pay for top talent. And it wasn't that she was hiring the wrong people or her hiring processes. The problem was, and this was identified in the mastermind group, one of the people in the mastermind group said, you're exactly where I was 2 years ago. You haven't given yourself permission to grow yet. And she stopped and she's like, you're right. And then the mastermind made her pick up the phone, call this new person who was ready to come to work for her, who was a master salesperson, and she scheduled an appointment right there and hired her the next week. That's making an effing decision and moving forward. So that's it. The RCD method: reflect, connect and decide. And what we're finding is it's changing lives. There's a section in the book, and as we start getting people sharing some of their stories, we'll add to the book and probably keep that online somehow, some way, with a cool little counter on getting close to those 10 million lives. But we have stories of people going through the RCD method and then how it's changed their life and what they found. And I'm seeing it in organizations, for-profit, nonprofit. We're seeing it with some government people that we've had brief conversations with. We've helped them find a solution. But if you notice, blaming and complaining is absolutely rampant in the world today. And the media, unfortunately, makes it worse because they're just as bad as we are. They're stuck in the same blame loop we all are. So anyway, short story long, that's the RCD method.
That's okay. Loved it. And then Nancy's like, Kevin, you sold me on the book. So I told you, we were just leaning right in. Now we're just going to have to go get it. So Kevin, we're at this time where I want to know where to find you. And of course, your favorite way to communicate.
I like email for now. That's kevin@blindblaming.com. Either myself or my assistant, Christina, will get back to you pretty quickly. She is on vacation for the first time in a long time, where I've told her,
good,
you are not working. Give me your password to your email. And I locked her out. So she can't work. Blindblaming.com is the website that we have set up. We're in the process of getting it all finalized and everything else. That's why I'm asking everybody to email me. But if you email me, those of you who are listening, I will give you a free copy of the book. Just give me your address when you email kevin@blindblaming.com, and we will send a free book out to you right away. It would be helpful if you tell me a little bit about yourself, or if you'd like to schedule a call, kevin@blindblaming.com is a great way to get in touch. If you need some help, we do have some coaching programs. We do have some mastermind groups that we can put you in to try to give you that experience of that RCD method if you'd like.
Nice. So then I do like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your head or in your head or on your heart that you just need to share with people. So what might that be?
I would say, just if you take anything away from today, I'd love for you to read the book, because I think you'll get a lot out of it. In fact, I just got a great testimonial. One of my heroes is named Jack Canfield. And for those of you who don't know Jack, he's retiring this year, and I'm like totally crushed. But I joined an author retreat with him. And it was cool because he reads your book and he goes through and he coaches you on some things that you want to do. Before I sent it to anybody else, I joined this author retreat and I sent it to him. And there was 5 people in front of me. And he is brutal coach in a good way, in a nice Jack Canfield way. And he gets to me and like the beads of sweat are coming down my head. And he's like, Kevin St.Clergy, yes, you kept me up till midnight. I read your book cover to cover. I took a bunch of notes. There's a lot of stuff in here that I think will change the world. This will be a classic. Like a long pause, and I'm like, okay, is there anything else? He's like, no, let's just focus on how you're going to market it. And I was like, that's awesome. So he loved it. We're using that quite a bit now. But I think if there's one thing you take away from today, if you don't want to read the book, or we went over a lot, just try to stop blaming and complaining and watch what happens to your life. On top of I have a garage mahal because I've done pretty good. I didn't really hit any home runs as a kid, but I have managed to hit some home runs in life and business over the last 25, 30 years. And I built my 3,000 square feet garage mahal. And we actually do live events here at the compound, as my mom called it. I couldn't stand it, but now everybody calls it the compound. But we've got about a 6,000 square feet facility, and we do trainings in the garage mahal. It's a casino, bar, virtual training room, and gym. And a lot of times when we just had a business building weekend where I'll bring out 1 or 2 people at a time. They stay here at the compound, and we spend 2-3 days working on their business and their life.
Nice.
That's a lot of fun. Anyway,
that sounds amazing. Just tell me there's no snow at your house.
No snow. We're Austin, Texas. It may sprinkle, and then the whole city shuts down for a week because we don't know how to function. I do have a winter coat, though. When I moved I was dating a woman in Canada a few years ago, and I got up to Canada for the first time in winter, and I had my light jacket on. And the maitre d' at the restaurant that I went straight from the airport he grabs my coat, kind of snooty, and he's like, "This is your winter coat, sir?" And he looks at the woman I was dating at the time. He's like, "He's going to die here. You have to take him to get a winter coat." So I did learn how to dress in the cold if I have to, but I live in Austin for a reason, because it's not that I don't like cold weather. I effing hate it.
We'll end the interview there. Thank you so much, Kevin. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
I do invite you to stay for a few more minutes, because I want to know what stood out to all of us during this conversation. But I'm going to start with Katharina, if you don't mind. I'll just call you out right now. What's something that stood out to you during our conversation?
I just get the sense you were going to change so many people's lives. Like so many people like don't recognize that they haven't found the root cause. And I feel like it's what a difference it's going to be that you're going to make for people. And I'm so glad that you're stepping in and doing this. And you have the courage to do it and just hear your story. And, even just from your talk about your story with the baseball, and even with what you had said about having sleep apnea, it's like, if you didn't keep digging and looking, you could have been stuck in that place indefinitely. And I think it just goes to say like how like each one of us needs to keep looking, like to keep looking deeper for what really that root cause is. So I'm just super glad that you're doing what you're doing. And
great, thank you. I'll add one comment if it's okay.
Yeah.
What you described is that going back to that RCD method, I thought we knew what was going on. My productivity system, my daily planner blocking my schedule for the sleep apnea. But it took somebody out of my circle. The two examples I give are medically related, because sometimes it is, but there's other things like the one I told you with the purpose. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed that, because I want to point out though that it was a physician who was outside of my sphere of influence in both cases. One was an eye doctor, one was my primary care doctor, who just happened to love sleep apnea studies. I got lucky because she knew exactly what it was and she nailed it. I mean, I remember doing the sleep study where like they wake me up in the middle of the night and they're putting a mask on me. I was like, oh, has it been a few hours? Like, no, it's been 5 minutes. You stop breathing. You have a problem. I'm like, oh, oops. So just want to point out that it took somebody else outside of that sphere of influence to notice it. But
it's like that saying of you don't know what you don't know. So you need someone else, as you say, outside of your influence to be able to point those things out. So it's amazing.
And what about you, Kevin? What's something that stood out to you in our conversation?
It's just fun to start talking about it. I've been so, for 5 months in a row, from 5 in the morning to 8 a.m., I wrote the book. And it was interesting because we wanted to come up with our own, I say me and my help with ChatGPT and Claude.ai to kind of refine the thoughts. And those of you who have dreams of being an author, I would highly recommend that you use those two tools to hammer out your ideas. I think it'll save you a lot of time, because this is my 7th book. And so the first 6 took forever, almost a year a piece to write. I was managed to write this one in 4 months. And then I hired a professional editor who helped me we do an editorial review where they kind of tell you this needs to be changed, this order needs to be changed, and then they do a copy edit. But it's much easier to write a book these days. You just plug your concepts into ChatGPT, then you have it write and give you some ideas. You'll have to rewrite it, but then Claude.ai, while it doesn't have the memory of ChatGPT, it's a much better writer, and it'll help you when you go back and forth between those two tools. I think you'll hammer out and come out with something very unique, just like we did for Beyond Blind Blaming. So
nice. I think the thing that stood out to me the most was the to be list.
Yeah,
and I remember writing something very close to that, but not quite exactly that. I'm going to have to redo it now. I call it my desire list.
Oh, I like
and in
that.
every new notebook, I always write myself a love letter of where I am, how much I've grown, what I need to hear on those days where I'm not feeling great. And of course, reaffirming. So then I have this huge list of how I want to feel and how I want to be as of my desire. But now, and I ended it with titles of who I want to be, like a luminary trailblazer.
I love it.
Right? So
I like the to feel list. That's a great idea. I mean, I have, yeah, I do. I had all my props here, but we did develop a Beyond Blind Blaming breakthrough journal.
Oh, yeah.
You have permission to write in this. You'll notice that there's a lot of questions and exercises that we take people through.
Yeah.
But I don't have a to feel list, but I do have something. One of my signs up here says the quality of your life is the quality of your habitual emotions, your emotional home. And if you want to live an extraordinary life, the decision to live in a beautiful state is the most important decision you can ever make. So I might have to ethically swipe and redeploy your idea of a to feel list, because it fits perfectly with that to be list.
Yes.
So I'd roll with that. That's a great idea. I'm going to say that's my biggest takeaway from today, a to feel list.
nice.
Because as you said, emotions aren't something we like to talk about, but they're part of a daily life. It's becoming more and more acceptable. I've had some podcast guests who specialize in teaching emotions to corporate environments. That was a fascinating podcast. And I'm going completely blank on her name. I don't have it in front of me, but
that's okay.
Teaching corporations that you have got to start, especially with this younger generation, you have to start focusing and understanding that emotions are here. And when you do this, you're going to start connecting with Gen Zers who you believe they don't want to work anymore. It's not that they don't want to work. They just don't want to work for you.
So Kevin, I do want to say thank you. We are out of time. We should connect behind the scenes because there's lots I want to talk to you about.
That sounds great. I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
Bye, everyone.
And we have our next guest backstage. Hardip, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Welcome to the stage, lovely soul.
Thank you. How are you guys?
Good. I'm just going to turn you up just a little bit more. There. Try again. Just say hello.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Good. Good. I can hear you better.
There you go. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good. So all these notes, I got to flip my page, be all noisy. I think you know what I'm going to ask, but I'm still going to ask it because to me, it's really important. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Loving, compassionate, supportive.
Ooh. Supportive. Okay, so you said loving, compassionate, and supportive. So far, the patterns that I'm seeing, even over the last couple of years, is we're more into the heart-centered, the loving, the kindness, the caring. It just makes my heart soar. So back to you. The loving, the compassionate, and the supportive. How do these words play a role in the core message that you have for people?
I follow them to the T. Try to, at least. Try to. Daily. Basically, my thing is treat others the way you want to be treated. So if you can pass love around, you'll get love back. And I truly believe it's like a ripple effect. So little by little, it will make a difference. Smile, give that love out. It's
hard not to.
Yeah, it's spreading love. That's the word is love. I think everybody is I don't want to say the word craving love, but I feel like love is the main word that connects everybody. And once we spread that, there's a smile on everyone's face. So.
Okay, now you're making my cheeks hurt. I was like, this is always a fun week, but then you have conversations like this and you're like, oh, you're making me smile so much. Okay. So then I want to just focus in just a little to dial in your message. So what is the message that you really want to leave people with that you're trying to spread?
Basically, we all stress about life and we have, worries and stresses and, we're always on the go and what we forget to do is we forget to live. We all forget to live. We are, we got to drop kids off. We got to make dinner. We got to go to work. We got to get ready. But what we forget to do is in those moments is to stop and just realize we're supposed to be enjoying these moments, not like one, like run here, run there, run everywhere. So it's about slowing down and just enjoying the people that you're with. Right? That's what I feel. I know when my kids were younger, I'm sure I know I did the same thing. It's like, hurry up, you gotta get to this game, you gotta go here. But you know what? As I get older, I've realized that the kids just want love. Adults just want love. Even the seniors just want love. So basically, we're at every stage, right? We're at every stage. Each person just wants love. So if we all slowed down and we just enjoyed every moment, we'd all be happy.
Ooh. On that note, I've had that conversation with my daughter a bunch of times and her friends just a couple times. But they're at that age where they don't really believe you. They're like, nah, there's no way. And I'm like, because I tell her, I'm like, that school bully, that road rage person, that adult who's being mean to somebody else, they are all underneath it all, just looking for love.
True.
So in that moment, I know it's really hard right now. I know. I'm like, but just send them love.
Right. Exactly. That's
and
just
then
it.
her friends are like, And I'm like, okay, in 20 years, you'll get it. But for now, in the back of your head, that's all I'm asking.
So true. But my goal is, I'm real honestly, I think in the chapter that I just wrote for bLU, it's in there that I don't want people waiting till their 40s and yes, that.
I don't know which one you're in, but I only have two. So there you go.
The last one. Well, I see what you're saying. Yeah. John Gray. Basically, I don't want people to wait till their 40s or their late 50s or their late 40s, and say, oh, I should have done this or should have thought this. So, I mean, I worked in the school system for a long time before I started doing this. And I tried, we all try to guide the kids, just like you're saying, we guide our kids. They don't get it. But if we can slowly put it into their head that, you know what, it's okay. And life is going to be okay. And all this stuff that we stress about in high school, you forget about as soon as you graduate, right? And then you go into university and you're stressed, but then you forget about it. And then you go into the next stage and you're stressed again. So if we can pick up on what we were stressed about and how we forgot about it, we probably wouldn't be stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of, but you know what? We're all in our own stages. We cannot force someone, but we can guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then the rest is up to the universe.
Yeah. There was an article I was reading lately about the 7 versions of ourselves that we grieve. I'm like, wow, yes, because I've been trying to have conversations about grieving past versions of myself. With every time somebody, I come across somebody who talks about grief or grief support or all that, I'm like, what about not the dying of friends and family and loved ones? What about the old version of me that I miss, that I'm comfortable with, that I can't start my next chapter?
True.
Until I start the grieving process for that version.
It's true.
And then the other point, so you're saying the past version, but I think also what Hardip is kind of talking about, and I think I'm guessing what a lot of people are stressed about is they have this idea of a future version of themselves that they want so badly, like now, and and I think that's what's creating all part of this stress, and they just don't know how to bring this vision or what they think it should be like into the current moment. So it's like that's right. I think like some of that wrestling comes, in that like they say, get ready now, because we have this idea of like what we think it should look like, instead of just kind of allowing it to unfold in its natural path and to just being present in the river of that and to allow it to unfold. And so it's like that kind of marrying the past and grieving that and letting go of that and not trying to cling so hard to a future that isn't here yet.
True. It's hard to do, but and the past also, we have to remember, we have to forgive ourselves and of course others for the things that we did or didn't want in our past. But then we try so hard to go into the future and say, oh, we're going to switch this. But instead of going into the future, if we just live now, it's so easy to say, live now and let it go and just let things fall into place for the future. It's believing, it's trusting. Once you believe and you trust and you let go, things do fall into place, but it's so hard letting go and trusting. But I personally can say, once you let go, things just fall into place, one step at a time, right? So,
okay. I want to ask you more about that, but I also want to give a comment. So the comment was, this whole process started shifting for me when I finally realized that grief was actually about love. And I was like, oh, okay. With that understanding, we can take that into what we're supposed to be doing with ourselves, about the believing in ourselves, the letting go and the trust with ourselves. That's part of that self-love. Why is it so hard? Like, how do we believe in ourselves? How do we actually let go? And I spent years trying to figure out what that meant. And then how do we build that self-trust? I know that's a lot, but like, where do we start, Hardip?
Honestly, for me personally, it was forgiving, because you go through a lot of stuff in your past and you're mad, you're angry, you're frustrated. Why did this person treat me like this? Or why did I waste the word waste is so wrong now. I see it. But I used to think, why did I waste so many years of my life worrying about what this person said or did, or, whatever it may be. But once I realized that person was also going through something and they didn't know how to treat other people, and they just were craving, it came back to love. They were craving love. So some people crave love in different ways, with treating other people badly, so they think they'll get love. Some people crave love by hugs. But once I forgave, everything just kind of opened up. You have to forgive. You have to forgive, and you have to look at the other person, that they're going through something. Not why are they doing this to me, but what is happening to them, and why are they feeling this way? Because they're obviously feeling some way to be treating somebody a certain way. It's forgiveness. I think forgive the past, and for the future, just are you okay, Laura?
I'm a crier, and I think I just shoved makeup in my eye, which made it worse.
I just
no, because I feel it. When you said that the first step is for us to forgive ourselves, like, how often do I do that? How often do we do that?
Yeah, we have to forgive ourselves before we can move forward. It comes down to us again. Self-care, forgiveness. We can't be who we want to be if we're asking it from everybody else. We have to be the ones that take the first steps for ourselves. Then everybody else falls into place. Because a lot of, they say your mirror, you're almost mirroring what the other person is doing if you're doing exactly what they're doing to you back. But as soon as you stop and just say, you know what, this person is either grieving or they're hurting and they're not sure how to deal with that process, that's when you start actually healing yourself. And once you start healing yourself, you forgive yourself, you do self-care, which was really hard for me. I think as moms or as women, we give, and we break almost, but we won't stop. So we have to stop and not feel guilty, set boundaries, say no once in a while, and not feel bad, and slow down. Because I think what we do is we get into burnout mode, and then we're no good to anybody. Because then we're yelling, then we're telling our kids, hurry up! You're taking too long!
Guilty.
Trust me, I've done it too. So it's basically, we have to slow down, because you know what I realized working in the school district, and this is from the point of view from the kids. I did elementary, but mostly high school in the last while. And those kids, they would be yelled at by their parents, because their parents were either, and it's no fault of the parents, but they're rushed to get to work. Hurry up. And the kids would come in, and I was also working in a program where there's high anxiety and high depression. So the kids would explain how they're feeling, because that's what we did. We talked about their feelings, and they would be stressed. And a lot of it would be, my mom yelled at me because she's late for work, and she's saying, hurry up, and this and that. So we're forgetting that the kids still have to live their life. And by us putting our pressures on them, what we're doing is we're just letting them mirror what they're going to do in the future, because they see what we do and they think it's normal. So as soon as we start mirroring what we want from them, the future starts changing, right?
Yeah. I've noticed with my daughter that I do a lot of personal development, because I really want to focus on that self-awareness, so that if I know better, I can do better. The problem is that there's a delayed reaction with how my daughter is. So then she's very much a mirror for where I was like a year ago, or even 6 months ago. And I'm like, oh God, was I really, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll break down. I'm like, did I traumatize you? Are you going to grow up and talk about this in therapy?
No, you know what? We do our best as parents. We try our best. It's not like we're doing this on purpose and we're trying to traumatize our kids. But if we actually stop and live in the moment, we might actually realize what we're doing when we're doing it. We don't realize it because we're in our head, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as we stop and we go from here, we realize, oh my gosh, these little kids, they have no clue what the world's about, and they're just seeing us do this, and then that's what they're going to mimic. So that's where the ripple effect, I believe in the ripple effect, because if they see calm adults, maybe they'll move into a calm adult kind of a world too, right? So it's just love. It comes down to love. Work from the heart, and everything kind of falls into place.
I want to know where this message came from. Can you tell us about the struggle and the ugliness and the?
You know what? I don't want to say struggle, because now it's not about that. But basically, I'm going to say I got married quite young. Love my husband, love my children, even love my in-laws. However, I did go through culturally. in our culture, there's, there's sometimes, in-laws, this, that, whatever it may be. So I did go through a little bit of a shock, I guess you can say, of how life was, I imagine, and how life was for many years. But I forgive. I forget. I forgive. I don't know if I can say forget, but I forgive. I forgive, and it's nothing major. Okay, I can even explain. So the elderly in our culture, they basically are mentality. Not everybody, but the mentality is, I'm here. I'm your aunt, your mother-in-law, your, whoever, sister, whatever, and you're here. So the mentality is what I say goes, and so it was a little bit shocking, and the thinking was a little bit different. Sometimes you go into narcissistic behavior, but when you're young, you don't know any of that. You don't understand it, so you're just like, what is happening? But all I can say is I can thank the person that put me through some difficulties, because I wouldn't be who I am today. So I actually thank that person, because if I didn't go through any difficulties, who thinks about God or the universe? Who thinks about forgiveness when you're all happy? I wouldn't be who I am. So I would actually say thank you to this person. Yeah. Took a long time, but I say thank you. I say thank you, and I say I forgive you, because you obviously went through some sort of difficulties to put me through what I went through to get to where I am. So I actually appreciate the person.
Yeah. One of the past coaches, I've had so many coaches over the years, but one of the past coaches that I had, she made me think of things slightly differently. She's like, okay, just pretend for a moment, whether you believe in this or not. I was like, okay. She's like, just pretend that the person that hurt you in this lifetime, what if they were somebody that loved you deeply in a different lifetime, and that they had chosen to come here and be that person to create that situation for you, so that you could have the lesson that they knew that you needed to learn. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, wow. Because think of, our whether it's the parents you love your most, your best friend, your kid, your husband, your partner, whoever, can you imagine them doing something that is hurtful, knowing that it's going to help you in the long run? I'm like, okay, that makes me feel good.
It's all perception and how we look at it, right? So perception is huge, because one person might look at it as, why is this person punishing you? And the other person will look at it and going, they're actually helping you, because in the long run, you're going to be a better person. Mm-hmm. But when you're young, you look at it this way. You don't look at it this way. It just takes years and years. But that's where I come in. I feel like I want to help, guide, support women, children, anybody, but help them realize that life is too short to be stressing about all this, because life is, I don't want to say this, but life is between 20 and 40, like the prime time, right? So, but you live, of course, you live faster, but like the young, the prime time. And if you're stressed during that prime time, then you look back and you go, oh, what did I actually do? Of course, when you're in your 50s, life starts, right? But you still have to look back and say, hey, guys, don't stress about the small stuff, because the small stuff really is small. But I had to go through it to actually see that. Yeah. So, it's guiding people.
We tend to forget to live. I want to know what living looks like and means to you specifically.
You know what? For me, some people want income. Some people want love. Some people want just cars and fashion and fancy purses. For me, it's just being happy, having a peaceful home, peaceful family, just being happy, because happy and healthy. I have to put that in there too. Happy and healthy. And if you have that, you have everything, because everything else just comes with it, right? But peace of mind, happiness. Once you have that, you have everything.
I used to tell my daughter, I was like, my job as a mom is to keep you healthy, happy, and safe, but in the reverse order.
Right.
Because she'll listen when I say happy first, but if I say safe first, she won't. So I would say it that way so that she would understand there's really just those three areas. And I want her to know that she is loved, and this is my way of showing her love.
Right.
but it tends to not look like love in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants what she wants.
Right.
I'm like, these are my priorities. Your safety is always my priority. So if she wants something just because it makes her happy, but I see the dangers of it that she doesn't see yet, I remind her, I was like, remember, reverse order.
Right.
But if you can prove to me, because I'm totally up for the conversation back and forth, give me extra data, I might change my mind. And sometimes it does. She gives me extra data. She tells me this is how we choose to be safe. Oh, okay. So that's no longer an issue. Cool. Makes you more happy than it does make me feel uncomfortable with not having safety. Sure. Go ahead. You have a yes now. Thank you. And then she now understands how to have those conversations with me so that she can live, and yet I cannot worry about her living the way that she wants to live.
So true. I know it's reverse. Either we worry or they worry. I don't know if they worry, but it's one or the other, but it's compromise.
It's compromise.
It's compromise.
So, okay, we haven't talked about this yet today too much. I want to know about the ways that you have decided to share this message.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I was part of a co-author book.
Yeah.
With 16 other women. And that's to do with inspirational stories of how women rose from basically the ashes to anybody's life story. And it was all women, just talking about their stories and how they were down here and how they got up here. And it's a power of the mind. For me, it's a power of the mind. It's power of loving, power of believing in others too. It's not just believing in yourself, but believing in others, right? Because we can't just do it ourselves. It's actually a community that works together, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I through the chapter, and now I'm on my second chapter, a co-author, and then I'm also doing Reiki, energy healing, and I'm doing Ayurvedic head massages, foot massages, pressure points. So it's basically, have you heard of Reiki before?
Yes.
Yes.
All of the above. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically, the energy healing, I'm a conduit for energy from the universe, and I help, align your chakras. People come in, I do guidance sessions with people to help them just kind of find themselves, I guess. Sometimes, you know what, we're all kind of lost, and it just takes one person to say something, and you're like, oh, that's right. I get it. And it doesn't mean that I'm higher or lower than anybody else, because I think we're all right here. No one's here. But it just takes that one little thing, like a mom saying it to a child, even though kids don't really get it till later. It changes someone's world. And that's all it is. It's just supporting each other. And you know what? Sometimes people that come in to me might be in their 30s. And because I've gone through things, it's just guiding. And once you guide them, they sometimes go, oh, I get it. And you know what? They don't have to take everything from you, but you pick and choose what you, just like for me, my grandma or my mom, my aunts, I would pick and choose. And then now I get it. Whatever things, right? I was like your daughter, but you pick and choose, and then you find what you want, and it works for you. Yeah. So basically, I would love to start doing podcasts eventually. I've gone to do some wellness fairs. In Vancouver, there's a casino called Park Casino. Their staff had an employee event. So just self-care, awareness, just letting people know it's just about living in the moment, right? I've gone to the planetarium and done some events there. So, are you here in BC or?
No, I actually went to BC for my honeymoon, but I'm on the opposite coast.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I'm in Nova Scotia.
So you know what I'm talking about with BC. So basically events. Had a small yoga event with a handful of women, just about talking about self-care. Self-care, and self-care is not just sitting in a bath. So I mean that is I would love to do that all the time, but it's food, nutrition, who we hang out with.
Yes.
We hang out with a huge one. That's self-care. If you hang out with the right people and you have the right vibes with you, that's self-care. Yes, of course, going for coffee with friends, but with the right crowd, right? Because we know what's right for us and what's not. And we just have to make the right decisions. diet, just even a Reiki session, head massage, all those things we forget as women. We're just on the go. As soon as we stop and just say, okay, it's my time for just that 1 hour, it shifts the whole month. Sometimes, a year, but it does shift because we've stopped and we've said, okay, we honor ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just got to stop from getting into burnout, because once you hit burnout, it takes time to get back out of burnout.
Apparently my mom's going to be here in 5 minutes and I have to unlock the door. So I will be right back. My apologies. I didn't know it was locked. But I'm going to ask you this question and then I'll let Katharina just continue. But I want to know about your experience with writing, because you brought up the idea of the compilation books, and a lot of people get started in writing that way. Did you always see yourself as a writer, or was there some sort of resistance there?
I never saw myself as a writer, but in my hardships, I did say I should write a book about this one day. when you're frustrated, but there was no intention. That was just me at a young age saying, I got to write a book about this and things that I've gone through. And I never ever thought that I would, but it's here. So one thing I would say is only say things that you really want to become true, which means stay positive. Say positive things, because one day they may come true. And in my case, yes, I'm so happy. But it happened. Yeah.
Aww. I didn't hear all of it, but I did hear some of it. Okay. And then the same kind of question around the podcasting. You said you're interested in podcasting. Is speaking and doing interviews or that format of communication, have you always felt comfortable there, or is that something new?
I've never felt comfortable showing my face or like coming on social media and stuff. However, I've always imagined speaking on stage. So I don't know how that goes hand in hand, but I've always imagined speaking on stages. Haven't done it yet, but visualizing it. So it's coming. It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. I think there may be one coming up soon in the fall, but I don't know. I just visualize myself speaking, and it's not to be like, oh, look at me. It's more just to spread the word, but in bigger amounts of people.
Yeah.
One-on-one, honestly. Guidance sessions that we do, I love doing that. That's just so personal. But sometimes you want to spread the word faster.
Yeah. The one to many is so much faster. But I ask these questions because the typical three are the speaking, the writing, the podcasting. But I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to do these things, because that's how you share your message. This show's about amplifying your message, but there's many different ways that you can choose from. I mean, Katharina's got her artwork behind her.
Yes.
That could be a way to share your message. We talked about singing before on this show. We talked about poetry and cooking and all kinds of different things. So I'm going to ask you this. Are there any unusual, we'll put the air quotes to that one, any unusual ways that you like to share your message?
Oh, to be honest, I don't know if this is unusual, but when I
air quotes.
When I take my dog for a walk, I like to smile at every single person and say hello to every single person. And some of them may stop and start telling you a story about life. Like, yes, here's an example. Maybe you're asking me this because I ran into a lady yesterday and our dog started playing, and she was saying, life is too short. Why can't we just be kids again? Because we actually know how to live when we're kids. And I think this message was for this, maybe. She says, why can't we just act like kids again? So she was explaining to me that she went to her sister's birthday party and she bought a choker for her dog and she bought a choker for herself. So they had matching chokers. Maybe this lady was in her late 50s. She said she went to her sister's birthday party. Her sister opened the door and her sister looked at her and goes, are you a kid? Like very angrily, like, what is wrong with you? And she said, I think my sister has forgotten how to live. She's forgotten how to be happy. And I came back to that again. Why can't we just because we're adults doesn't mean we can't play like little kids.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that you bring that up. I get called a child all the time, but it's because like my my playfulness, my curiosity, like it's the energy of a 6-year-old.
Yes.
But at the same time, I know how to balance it when necessary with like the really serious, the really deep. And it's because I can experience both of them that
Right.
we can feel both of them. Like if I only ever had the highs of a 6-year-old, then it wouldn't feel the same, go back to normal or neutrality and go back up. No, but because I have that depth, I finally allowed myself the permission slip to showcase that 6-year-old energy of me, because that's the equal and opposite. The higher we go, the lower we go. The lower we go, the higher we go. But when the world is barely in the middle, and this is where they feel safe, then anything beyond that is where they feel unsafe. And this is exactly where messages come in. As soon as that message starts to hit on real life and the truth and the emotions behind of that, and we start to get uncomfortable, people don't want to talk about it. But that's why it's important.
So that's why we have to start living the way kids live, because kids don't think about that. They don't think about, oh, what's this person going to think about me? They just kind of do it, right? I mean, for example, my son, my younger son just turned 30. What did I do? I got those horn blower things for everybody that came. And I said, here, everybody, we're going to, just because it just makes you feel like a kid. And they all had pictures with them. We felt like little kids. I don't know if he was too impressed, but that's okay. we had fun. We had fun. So it's just about doing things out of the box and not being so afraid about doing things outside of the box. Of what are people going to think? If you're not doing anything wrong, you're not hurting anybody, go ahead and do it. Right? Just enjoy and do it.
Now, I can tell you that this playfulness and this smiliness, but also the super depth and truth and seriousness, that's why people love me, or so I'm told. Okay. I'm just going based on what people tell me. And it's that kind of openness that I have strangers just like you, Hardip, that come to you and tell you their life stories or tell you their secrets or all that kind of stuff. Because you're not hiding. You're just being you. You're being authentic. And that's a comfort zone for people.
And I think a lot of people want to be like that, but the fear comes in. Once fear kicks in, we're not ourselves. So, I mean, I've always told my kids too, like, don't hurt anybody, but do what you want to do. And my parents told us that too. Don't hurt anybody, but in the process, do whatever you feel like doing. And don't worry what someone's going to say, because one person will say, oh my goodness, can you believe that? The other person's going to say, wow, I can't believe she did that. So who cares? Just do what you want to do, right? Enjoy life is what it is, without hurting anybody in the process.
So for the next couple minutes, I want to do something fun if both of you are interested in playing a game with me. Yeah. So taking that idea of living and being a little kid, I'm going to start with Katharina and then I'll share and then Hardip. So Katharina, if you could be a 6-year-old again, how would you love to spend your day?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm thinking and this is for me even now. It's like, I want to go to the water. I want to swim with the fish. I want to go snorkel and just play be in the sunshine outside. It's my absolute favorite place to be. And I try to do it as much as possible. So I try to live as the 6-year-old whenever I can.
I'm thinking mine's really similar. Just throw me at a park, throw me in the woods. I'm just going to climb everything, hug all the trees, talk to all the animals.
Yeah. I talk to the fish. Maybe people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, I gotcha. I'm talking to them underwater.
You draw the face on the pet rock.
They hear me. I swim with them.
What about you, Hardip? What would you do?
When you asked that, I saw myself running on the beach, in the sand and just playing and outside. Do you remember playing as kids outside? Just kids in the neighborhood running around and you just did whatever I remember coming in at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was just fun. It's just, you enjoy yourself. So yeah, just playing, running around, being free. We still got to do that, guys.
Isn't it funny how simple it is? How absolutely simple it is. And yet we don't prioritize it. It's
true.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So maybe that'll be some homework. Today's going to be a homework day. Yes. Last one we did a challenge. Yeah, this will be some challenge or homework. Like, what is something that your 6-year-old would want to do? And then ask yourself as an adult, can I do that in the next 5 minutes, or at least have the same feeling? Or can I do something a little bigger if I wanted?
Right.
Who knows, right? Just get that feeling of being alive again.
Yes.
So Hardip, I want to know, how do we find you? And of course, what is your favorite way to communicate?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well, but main page is Instagram, and that's HB Divine Wellness. Also Linktree/HB Divine Wellness. I have a website in progress. It should be coming out soon. I can update you, Laura, whenever that happens. Other than that, it's email is also another way, hb.divinewellness@gmail.com. But Instagram is a good way to contact me. Thank you.
Awesome. And then I also like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something in your mind or on your heart that you just need to share with people. So what would you love to leave people with?
Just to live in the moment. Live in the moment, and all those stresses, maybe just write them down on a piece of paper and just take them out of your head and put them on a piece of paper, and then one day at a time, take one of those stresses and deal with them, not all 10, because we have a list in here that I have it too. We just think that we are like machines and we can go. But do one thing and then go outside and play. Like we said, go for that walk, or because I've realized once you go for that quick walk, even if it's 15 minutes, you come back in and you get that list done so much quicker because you took time for yourself. So take time for yourself, honor yourself, love yourself. And then after that, everything else just falls into place.
Okay, so for those people, I'm thinking of myself a few years ago, even like last year. I couldn't walk this time last year. So there's been a lot of progress in taking care of myself, learning how to live again. But for those who cannot climb trees, if your little inner 6-year-old wants to climb trees like mine did, even just sitting outside under that tree or looking at the tree and just imagining your 6-year-old self climbing that tree, that can still give you that same joy, that same vibrancy as if you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as an adult if you do it, because then some of your thoughts might come in and be like, there's no way, my knees are going to hurt. I'm going to fall down and hurt my butt. Now just imagine your inner self going and climbing the tree. Okay, so we have about a minute and a half left. I want to ask you one more thing. If there was a way that you could share your message that you haven't done yet, what would you love that to be?
Like a process or a way to spread that message?
However you want to answer the question.
I'm just going to say it. I've imagined being on a stage with, I'm not going to say billions, but tons of people, spread that message. And then my vision is those people spread that message.
Yes.
And then those people spread that message. So it's basically just the ripple effect. Mm-hmm. It's not just coming from one person, it's coming from everybody. So basically it's a ripple effect of love. Aww. So one of us can spread, honestly, if one of us could spread that, the next person will spread it, the next person will, it's like going to Tim Hortons or like, McDonald's. People say, I'll pay for the person behind me.
Yeah.
But we can do that with love.
So let's take the next 45-ish seconds and we're all going to close our eyes, and I'm hoping people watching are doing the same. And we're going to imagine you, Hardip, on the stage, and your mouth is moving. You're saying something, but all we're really hearing is love coming out of your mouth. So you've walked up those stairs, usually. You're on this platformy stage of some sort. Imagine it the way that you like to imagine it. You've got all the people sitting in front of you, kind of sort of beside you. There are lights on you. There's cameras on you. People are recording with their phones. Your mouth is going. And all you feel is love coming out of you. And then all that love coming right back at you. Then you're hearing some clapping. You're seeing the faces of people in the audience going, they're nodding, they're smiling. They go blank for a moment. Then you see the realization on their faces. And then you feel the love again. and then they applaud and you walk off the stage, and in the back of the stage is the same thing. People are high-fiving you. They're telling you how wonderful you did. You've got a couple audience members coming up to you saying, what you just said meant so much to me, and I can't even imagine where I'm going to be now. This was amazing. Thank you so much. And as you walk out, you get to open your eyes and you just get to feel all of that love of doing your very first talk. So you can open your eyes, Hardip.
Thank you. I didn't realize.
So I will call this the official close of your interview.
Thank you.
Double checking all my timestamps. Yep. Awesome. So I like to take this extra few minutes just to do a little bit of a recap. This stuff is perfect for sharing on social media. So I'm going to start with Katharina again, just to pick on her a little bit more. Lovingly picking on you. Katharina, what is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
It's just how simple and yet how important it is your message. It's something that it has so much gravitas, and yet we just how often do we just bypass that, and how it really is it pretty much is the most important thing, because if you can be in that place of love and have that ripple effect, I mean that will change the world, right? So and just even from within your own family, and being present and living. I mean, can you imagine us all living as 6-year-olds, and that 6-year-old joy of how different of a place our world would be? It'd be amazing. And I would want to live there.
Definitely. What about you, Hardip? What's something that stood out to you during our conversation?
Just a little bit of everything, but I just loved that 6-year-old feeling of seeing myself running on that beach with the sand and just being free, and actually giving permission to ourselves to go do that. Because as adults, we don't give ourselves permission to take that break and stop and say, okay, grocery, this, that, cleaning, that can happen later. I'm just going to stop and I'm going to go out for 15 minutes, but we don't give ourselves permission. So giving ourselves permission to live and be free.
Ooh, okay. I think this thing that stood out to me the most, mostly because I cried, also is that idea of the forgiveness. When it comes to living your life and allowing yourself to do that, we have to give ourselves permission. But that can be really hard because there's beliefs, there's that difficulty letting go, there isn't that self-trust, and just that first step being to forgive yourself. Giving ourselves grace is slightly different than the full, deep act of, look, whatever it is that happened, or whatever it is that I have done in the past, I forgive myself. Grace just kind of feels like, that's okay. But that forgiveness feels like, I'm a human being. I'm allowed to be a human being. I will always be a human being. And from this day backwards and this day forward, everything's fine. So let's rephrase that, because that's the F word we don't like to say either. I'm satisfied. I can do this. I got me. Right? I like that. That's really nice. So then with the last 60 seconds or so, is there something else that you would like to highlight? Because there was a lot of fun parts in there.
Just to go easy on yourself. Just don't put so much pressure on yourself, and actually self-care. Self-care, it's so important. Just remember, self-care. I am worthy, because we forget, we take care of everybody else, but we forget about ourselves. And then when we're really tired, we get cranky. So it's better just to take that time for self-care, and we'll be happy people, right? So take care of yourself.
Thank you. This was lovely. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, bye, Hardip.
Take care. Okay.
Our next guest is just clicking the link now, so she should be here any minute. But that was so nice, and my cheeks still hurt.
I'm starting to feel mine hurt too a little bit. You know, the love and the joy. You know, can't help but smile at all that.
Yeah, we were talking about living. We were talking about vibrancy, and like this show for me is my inner 6-year-old playing all day. because people's stories, what they're passionate about, even their background where there is some of that mess or uncomfortableness, that's what shows me who they are as a human being, behind the masks, behind the armor. And when I get to see that from somebody, like I see the world without that all the time anyway, but when they finally get the courage to show me that, it's like, yes, I can see the world and I don't need glasses and nothing's wrong with me.
And it's so rich, right? It's like you see the richness of it in the beauty, like in its completion and its fullness. Like you were saying earlier, the joy, the high and the lows, and that you have this whole range of like just humanness and goodness and beauty, and wonderful.
I know. And now like the feeling of forgiveness, the beauty, the gratitude. What were some of the words that came up yesterday? There was gratitude. No, it was me listening to Dr. Joe this morning. It was like the attitude of gratitude and the attitude of like self-commitment, that self-trust. Lately, I've just been feeling like this beauty and calmness within, and it's so good. Okay, so our next guest is here behind the scenes. Nicole, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Hi.
Hello.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Hi there.
So Katharina is my guest co-host today, and I'm going to lovingly pick on you. So here's how I like to start my interviews. I think you may know this or not. It's not so secret. So Nicole, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Ooh. So not what they normally describe me as.
No. What do you want them to say? What would make you so happy?
Inspiring, impactful, and I guess I would love for them to call me magical.
With a J?
Sure.
We're just going to put the J and the K in there anyway. So, of course, my follow-up question to this, and really these are the only 2 questions I have, is how do those words, inspiring, impactful, and magical with a J and a K, how do they play a role in the core message that you have for people?
That's what I aim to do, is to empower people, being, an inspiration for them to open up and be their authentic selves and step into their true purpose, their divine purpose, and what their full authenticity. Impactful, because that transformation, every time I'm on a stage or giving a talk, I like it to be an experience and a transformational experience. So usually it is impactful, and I get those love notes, or people come up to me crying, saying, I needed to hear that today. So I really love being impactful in that positive way. And magical, because I like to blend the science and the spiritual. And when you go into that quantum realm, it is pretty magical.
Yes. I think that's why we connect so well, is because I'm exploring the spiritual side of me, the more magical side of me. But at the same time, there's this very science-based side of me. And I'm like, how do they connect? Like, I know that it's not just woo-woo. That's, in my words, it's woo-woo is a term used as a catch-all for science that we don't know is science yet for that particular person. And I was like, I know it's science.
Absolutely. That's that quantum space.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then I want to know what got you into being magical and pulling out people's authenticity and getting them to understand and showcase the purpose that they have within.
Ooh, I've always had this this part of me that was very intuitive and very connected to other realms, right? So I saw things before they happened. I saw spirits, I saw energy, auras, and yet at the same time, I was very stifled with it because it wasn't matching up with the belief system in the family being so Christian. based, right? Even though everybody in my family is super like vision intuitive and dreams and all of this very prophetic dreams. So when I was growing up, it was very confusing because for some reason I was the one that was demonized with it, right? Because I think maybe because I saw more spirits than, and when people crossed over, I would see them, in that death space and cross them over or get a message. So I just knew things, and seeing the energy around people, I could understand interactions. So it got stifled, but it never went away. And then I had a near-death experience, and it became extremely powerful after that near-death experience that I couldn't ignore the gifts that I had. And sometimes my throat would close up if I needed to say something to somebody. And the more that I tried not to say it, the more I wouldn't be able to breathe. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't breathe until I said it. So it was, the energy was teaching me, just open your mouth and say what you need to say, especially when it's something important to somebody else, even though I don't know what it means. And so it just kept developing and developing into this space of, you know what, I'm not going to ignore the gifts that I have. And in that, I mean, I think it even saved my dad's life during COVID, So it showed up. I'm in it, and I'm here to use it to not just my advantage and being my authentic self, but to help other people recognize that it's okay and it's safe to be your authentic self, because I didn't believe that for a long time.
I was going to say, yeah, that right there, especially, I think this is also the other layer of how we met, the entrepreneur stuff, where we have that dichotomy of who we are. And if you look at them individually, they're like, there's no way that they connect. But when two seemingly opposite things are in the same person, there's just such tension of the dichotomy.
Yeah.
How do you get people to start believing that who they are, exactly who they are, without changing who they are, is okay?
Yeah. So I think that we do change who we are, but we don't change the essence of who we are, right? So our authentic soul self has a specific essence that we're here to match that vibration. And this physical body has all these programs that don't match that vibration. But when you tap into who you are, there's those things that are inside, and you can feel them physically, whether it's that, gut wrench, or that heart, that sorrow, the grief that we feel, the fears that we feel. Those are all indicators in that negative way around the things that are blocking us from being our authentic self. So, how do I get somebody to see their authentic self? When we dig through some of these layers, it exposes, what really ignites you. So when we get into a conversation about, I'll say this, I just had a new client come in, book a session, and I get this all the time. So I think that it's a perfect example. I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do, but I don't know why I just can't do it. And I want to start this business. I want to do this stuff. And, they're holding a well-paid position in a company. They're just not happy. And I was a chemist, and I know that feeling. I loved what I did, but there was that piece of me that just was not fully there, even though parts of me were there, because I created, an atmosphere in my role that satisfied a lot of who I am, right? And empowering my team and doing that kind of thing. But when we talk about it, it's I start feeling in intuitively where their blocks are, and I can feel in someone's energy system where the blocks are, where the fears are, and all this stuff rises up. So when I start talking, it's, there are things that are holding that person back. And a lot of times it's the fear, not trusting in themselves. What else typically comes up? Just, having that fear of being judged by other people, or having a certain belief system around what success looks like, and that it has to deal with a certain money level, when that's really not necessarily the case. Your level of success is something that is felt in the level of joy and happiness that you have within you. So yes, and you can have a lot of financial success, but it may not come in the same exact way that you believe success looks like, right?
Yeah.
Some people think, oh, I want to be this influencer status in the social realm, but I am so scared to be visible. Well, how are you going to do that? And, I use something that my dad used to say: how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time, right? And I used to look at my dad and be like, why would anybody want to eat an elephant, Dad? I was so little. But it's so true that you can't just devour some huge thing. You have to cut it into pieces. So you have to be able to move up your ladder in the sense that makes sense for you. Because if you are only ready to take 1, 2, or 3 steps, those are the steps that you work on. And then you can think about 4, 5, 6. You're not just going to leap up 27 steps, right? Too bad.
I know,
right? Give me some balloons.
Helium balloons, really great big
ones, right? And a pea shooter.
It reminds me of a practice that I did for myself, because I wanted to know what does success look like for me, but I wanted to focus it just on financial, because that's one of the things I've always had an issue with. So I decided I'm going to write out the finances of my dream life. Like, we're not holding back here. I want to know, like, best of the best life. Oh my God, I'm crying every day. I'm so happy. Guess how much my dream life cost if I was living solo and paying for everything myself and doing all the things?
How much?
No, just like make a random guess and then.
Oh, okay.
Per year. What do you think?
Per year? Okay.
Yeah, per year.
Your dream life.
Dream life.
I don't know. 200,000.
No. What do you think, Katharina?
Less.
I say $1 million.
You say $1 million? Okay, cool. I was really hoping that there'd be like a nice gap between. Barely over $400,000.
Barely over 400,000? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that includes traveling, that includes self-investment, that includes my business, that includes charity work, that includes like all the stuff and things. And I'm like, really? Barely over 400,000.
And that's doable.
That's totally doable.
Yeah.
But yet, how many times do we make our dream look like it's this huge elephant?
Like, yeah, I know. You have to make $10 million or more in a year. No, you don't. I mean, yeah, I don't. It's so simple. It really, really is. And when you chunk everything down, it just becomes more simple. And when you get into that mode and allow yourself to receive properly, okay, so people come to me for manifestation, but allowing yourself to receive, wanting to receive, is not allowing yourself to receive. And receiving isn't just taking or having people give to you. Receiving comes happily and willfully. So, how many times are you in receiver mode? That's not quite receiver mode, right?
Yeah.
So, Laura, if I was coming over and I said, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get, I'm going to pick up these pastries and coffee and tea and whatever we're going to have. And I come in and you try to give me money for it, right? Or you say, hey, Nicole, here's half, or here's the whole thing, right? And I'm like, no, I said I was going to do this, and we fight over it. And then I say, okay, fine, I'll take it. That's not receiving willfully and happily.
Yeah.
That's rejecting receiving. Right. Mm-hmm. And so were you. So we're both rejecting receiving. If I say, I'm going to pick these up because, you got to try these things. They're so awesome, whatever. Oh. And I bring it on over and you're trying to give me money. And I say, no, this was on me. Like, I wanted to do this. And then we start fighting about it. Now we're resisting resistance. We're creating more resistance, which creates more pain. And now it deflates that whole spirit of giving and receiving. Happily and willfully.
When you first said that you're bringing stuff over, my first thought was, no, I already have coffee. I can.
Right? No. So, if anybody who is listening today or any other day that they're watching this and replaying, just start practicing willful and happy receiving and giving. So, if you're giving because you feel like you have to, forget that too. Don't do it. If you feel obligated, I've said this for a long time. Anytime you feel obligated to do anything, just say no and don't do it. Mm. And it's okay. It's okay. And people will get over it too, because you're going to start seeing that things are going to shift very, 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 very quickly in your favor. Even when you get over that fear of judgment that people are going to look at you a certain way because you are defining something within you with doing these things that you're not aligned with. So you start doing the things that you are aligned with, and you get more of that. You get more of the people who appreciate you for who you are. You become more and more authentic. And that's, my friend, how we get somebody to become who they already are and shed what they are truly not.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many reels and videos and posts I've seen from like celebrity actors and actresses that basically say it's because of who I am, like authentically before the role that got me the role, or before the fame that got me the fame.
Right.
This is really what I want to hear. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I want to hear. It's just telling me that it's safe to be me, that there are people out there that are willing to accept me as I am.
Yeah. It can seem a little scary at first.
Yeah.
Until you start really working through what are you exactly afraid of, and peeling back those belief layers. I got to a certain point in my business that, I was ready to be more visible. So it just seemed like every time I started becoming more visible, something would happen and I would retreat because it didn't feel safe. It was usually a very weird thing that would happen that, creepers, I'll just say that, and and I didn't feel safe. And then, I'd look at things and say, all right, well, maybe I need to rethink this because maybe I'm not ready. And then I realized, no, what is the belief that's underlying this? Let's find out and let's pluck this out because this is a pattern that keeps happening and I'm ready. So inside, in your authentic self, you're ready, but there's something that keeps self-sabotaging through you to not make it there. And when I peeled back the layers, there was a lot of epigenetic things that were in there from the ancestors that said, and also my childhood that said it wasn't safe to be me in public. It was okay for me to be me in my tiny little realm. So as my little realm grew bit by bit, it was okay, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until it got to the place where, well, it's got to be a lot more public now. And then, so there was that dichotomy, right? The dichotomous belief that, I believe in being my authentic self always. And yet at the same time, let's not be too visible to too many people because it's not safe. Ooh, that's not good because it is safe. And once I saw what that was and the layers around it, I shed that off. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, I've counted that I'm over 100 podcasts in a very short period of time. And I was like, okay, well, there's a small measure of, being able to just be out there and saying whatever, you know. So.
I want to go back to you saying that you were a chemist before, because I know it's related to all of this authenticity and knowing what you need to do, but not having the bravery to do it. How did you go from being a chemist to working with empowering and bringing out the authenticity in people?
Yeah. So that was like a process, I think, because in my chemistry career, I moved up into leadership roles, and then I was running a team, and I was a lead chemist for international projects and scale ups and all that stuff too. So I was overseeing on the analytical side, like operations that were happening in 5 different countries. So I love different cultures. So I loved working with all these different cultures and people and projects. And then I also loved empowering my team because I was in a company that was massively growing, such a rapid rate. And when I came into the company, my department had 15 of us in it. When I left, there were more than 75 in my department. And my group basically was connected to 8 other groups. So we were the hub of 8 different departments in pharmaceutical development. So, and that was aside from the 5 campaigns that were happening internationally as well, right? Because I had to review that stuff too. And then it grew so fast that there was a lot of the communication breakdown, all kinds of things that were happening there. And I always tried to, help make things more efficient and all that. So it was just in my nature. So I took my team and, well, actually in my department, I started initiatives on my own. Like I started a communications improvement team that was for inter and intra department communications, so that we could make things more efficient, be more transparent, know what the heck is going on. And I also did a lot of surveys with that and basically captured a lot of information that we needed in order to, as far as leadership went, to move things in the direction that we wanted them to go and keep a good culture and reduce the burnout and all that stuff. Meanwhile, I was doing initiatives to help motivate and inspire people to stay in like the positive spirits and want to communicate with other people. And then I took all the data that I collected and I was able to talk during one of our department meetings. And I showed the data that everybody contributed to and all this. Because I did see that people didn't feel safe in filling out surveys in the beginning until they really knew that they are anonymous. I kept them anonymous so that I could get real data. And I presented it. And it was, oh, this is great. This is great. Like we can take action for this. And then it got squashed in the upper management. So instead of feeling completely deflated, I was a little disappointed. So I can't lie about that. I was disappointed that there was all this work that went into it. It was presented. There was really good data. There's stuff that we could have done to take these initiatives and make our department at least and be an inspiration to the rest of the development teams, right? and it just got squashed. So I instead went back and said, I can't change everyone else, but I can have impact on my team, and I can change the way my team works. So I just took that and I applied to my team. And it was a year-long initiative project rollout that I did for training and empowering and raising my people up to be the leaders that I saw them to be and that they wanted to become. So I told them what I was going to do. I sat down with them and had meetings with them. I went through all the things that I thought about them, their strengths, their weaknesses, where I saw them going, and asked them where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do, what they wanted to learn, so that I took all of that into consideration. And what I found was most of them were like, oh, I didn't think that I would be able to do that. Or you really think that I could do that? And it was like so awesome to be able to like reach inside someone and like pull out the self-doubt and create a plan, and even also acknowledge and respect. There was one person who was very comfortable with where she was, and she didn't want to move into a lot of different areas and learn a lot of different things. She was quite comfortable doing what she knew, and that's her comfort zone. So I did encourage to push a little bit outside that comfort zone to stretch and grow her, which she agreed to. So it was a mutual thing, and put her into a more leadership role in more of the training aspect, instead of just doing, but also training others to be experts as well. So we ended up having a super overlap of all the experts. So when my people went away on vacation or were out sick, they didn't come back with that dread that everybody seemed to come back with, that they are going to have a mile high stack of papers and things to do and just not want to come back. So my team ended up getting accolades, acknowledgments, monetary rewards, all kinds of things because of how efficiently we operated. So,
okay, so then the question is internally, because share whatever you need to share, but internally, what was going on where you finally left that job?
Oh yeah, that was okay. So I ended up getting
like internally.
I ended up getting mercury poisoning, and I almost died.
Oh wow.
So, and it was really, really bad because it was a chronic exposure for a handful of years. I'm going to say at least 5 years. And during that time, it got really bad, got to my brain. I had memory loss. I had cognitive function just go down the tubes. I was typing one day, actually, an email to somebody giving an update on a presentation on data that I was going to give. And I looked at what I was writing, and it was gibberish. And I sat there saying, oh, maybe my hands are on the wrong keys, but they were on the right keys. What was happening was I was typing entire sentences backwards.
Oh, wow.
So it was up here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could do that thinking about it.
Yeah. I can't. I can't. Not entire sentences. When I sat back and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh.
So what was your next step? Is that when you got into some of these other skills that you started learning? Or were you developing those while being okay?
Yeah. So I left chemistry in 2013. Excuse me, I just have to cough.
Mm-hmm.
I left chemistry in 2013. I had started my business in 2008. Okay. So I was doing a lot of empowerment in different ways, more intuitive readings, aura readings. So I was doing a lot of aura pictures and the readings that go with that, and workshops for transformation and increasing intuition and just balancing your own energies. So I was developing those while I was also, working on my leadership skills as a team leader and growing in that realm. When I got mercury poisoning, and it was like a 2-year battle for my life and detoxing from it, that I was so worn out. Like I was carrying around a mini suitcase full of things that I had to take all day long. Like every hour and a half, there was something else that I had to take.
Oh, wow.
24 hours a day. So it was like buffers for this, things, buffers for that, tinctures for this, and, things that stripped your body of stuff. So a lot of chelation therapy is what I was doing. But I also had to ingest a lot of vitamins and those kinds of things. So the vitamins that I was taking, just so you know how like ridiculous this was, instead of the one vitamin that I used to take, I had to take 12 a day to put back in what was getting stripped out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was very exhausting. And, I just didn't have the energy for much. And nobody could figure out what was wrong with me for a year and a half. So there was that.
Yeah.
And I had to figure it out myself because it was quite evident that I was going to die if I didn't.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, it was pretty scary because I passed out on the floor when I went to go pour my daughter's milk for her cereal when she was like 2. So I woke up to her like, Mom, like thinking I was pretending I was sleeping or something like that. And she was trying to wake me up. But yeah, I realized, oh yeah, this is not going anywhere good.
Wow.
So I had to transform my own self. So in that process, there were times, and I'm sure every single person can relate when you go through some tough stuff, that you go into that victim mode. And I just remembered I was the sole provider for my family of 6. At the time I was married, my husband was on disability. He had lupus, and there was a lot of tough stuff happening. And with me not being able to work or even drive or do anything, I was in massive pain all day, all night. I would cry myself to sleep every night. I would have to be completely exhausted physically in order to go to sleep because I was in so much pain. It hurt to lay down, it hurt to sit, it hurt to stand, it hurt to change position. And I would constantly think, well, if I move, then it'll be better. But it always seemed to be worse. And I'm like, how can this be worse? So I went into that little slump of, victim mode. Like, why is this happening to me? And feeling bad and making myself feel even more horrible. And then I had to realize, okay, well, that's not working either. And how do I get out of this? And I had to move through my own mindset and be able to do that for me before I could help anybody else. So the different adversities I've gone through throughout my life, I can relate to a lot of people's things. So it may not be exactly the same, but there's relatability and also an understanding at various levels through various situations and experiences that I can have that empathy for other people and know where they are and be able to help them move on up to a different place. So
I'm going to make an assumption that through this whole near-death experience, there was a journey of figuring out your identity all over again, how you have a place in the world all over again, and how you relate to your family, your friends, your job, like all of that. And that makes sense for what you do now with empowering people to be that authentic version,
yeah,
to figure out what that looks like and to not be afraid of that.
yeah. that near-death experience saved my life.
Yeah.
It did.
That's how you know somebody goes from a victim to what I call a champion.
I wanted to die.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with death, and like I was obsessed with fantasizing about how I could die.
Yeah.
I was in such a bad place mentally, I guess. I had postpartum depression after my third child at that point. So that was before I left chemistry. And I didn't know I had postpartum depression, and it just got worse and worse and worse until I was every day, every minute of the day, just thinking about how I could die. Like I would conjure up the most bizarre things, even when I was working in the lab. Oh, I could just, stick myself with this and I'd be out, and, the central nervous system shut down in about 5 minutes or less. Right. So there was all this stuff that and then my mantra was, well, just my kids need me. So hang on, just hold on a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And that was a very presencing mantra, just to like bring me out of that thought and into, okay, you can just hold on. Kind of like when people in the military, they just think about the step that they need. They're not whether that thing that they're going to is 10 miles away, 20 miles away, but they're just taking one step, one step, one step, one step until they get there. And that's pretty much what I was doing with my mantra. And then I had this near-death experience, and it completely changed everything. And I really think that I ended up going through a wormhole to another dimension, and things were shifted around so that maybe I died in that other dimension, but in this one I got to move on. So I was able to do that.
It sounds like a focusing on your next best step, your little increments, eating that elephant one bite at a time. Nicole, I want to make sure that we know where to find you, and of course your favorite way to communicate.
You can find me on social medias under Nicole Majik or Majik LLC, Majik, like my last name. And I've got YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. Those are the ones. I'm not really big on Instagram right now, but YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn are where you can find me.
Nice.
MajikLLC.com as well is my website.
Nice. So I like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something in your head or on your heart that you just need to share with people. So what would you love to leave people with?
I would love to leave people with the thought that whatever it is that you're going through right now is only to bring awareness to where you can be next. So if it's tough because there's a push for you to move in a direction that's different and to be true to yourself. So if you need to get quiet and really listen to what it is that you want and take steps towards that. No matter how tiny they are, they're like dominoes. So you can do it, and I'm always here to support.
I love you too, Nicole. So I'm going to call this I have time. I'm like a minute and a half. Okay. Since we didn't get onto this topic, there's always so much to talk about. Did you write any books? Do you happen to have a book beside you?
Oh, I wrote a chapter in a book, and it was a compilation called A Mile in Her Shoes, but I am actually writing a book right now, and it's called Can You Just?
Can you I'm picturing the anger behind it.
Yeah. And it brings you through like the scenarios that we all encounter and when we're like, can you just? And then shows you, the psychological things behind the behaviors that other people exhibit, but then also how you move to changing that situation, and then how you can also recognize what your role is in that and support yourself and then some motivation and inspiration behind to keep going with it with techniques along the way. So
Okay, with
that'll
that,
be out.
now that we touched on one of those, I will call this the official close of your interview. But I do invite you to stay for just a few minutes because I like to take this time to do a little bit of a recap. So I'm going to start with you this time, Nicole, just to switch things up.
Okay.
Give Katharina a bit of a break. I've been picking on her all day, lovingly. Nicole, what is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
The way that the two of you were holding space while I was telling some of the stories really stood out. And that's really what most people need, is just being in that place where somebody can hold space for them. So I felt supported like I support other people. And I just want to acknowledge that because I don't think that that's acknowledged enough these days. So thank you.
You're so welcome. I know, I'm pretty sure Katharina has those kinds of conversations too, where there's some heavy conversations. And to find even just one person, let alone a group of people, to hold space like that is hard.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate the vulnerability that it takes to open up and share, especially when we're live and going on online TV and who knows where in the future. So thank you. Gratitude right back.
Thank you.
What about you, Katharina? What's something that stood out to you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Laura. Like, I'm grateful for your vulnerability of your story and just the whole, the diverse experiences that you've had that have brought you to this place of empowering people to step in their authentic selves. And you're showing how it's done, by being here and sharing the fullness of your story and the trials and the ways that you've overcome them. So I'm just really grateful that to be able to have heard this and to be able to have held the space for you to be able to explore that. So, and I think, that you were able to stand in that, like, also shows like how much you can be of support to others. Because like you said, you've lived this breadth of experience that, the pain, you can hold the space for it as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ooh, I want to make that visual just for a moment. There was somewhere on social media, I saw this image of a jar, like picture a mason jar or something. And there was just this black circle sphere thing in it. And the idea was, see how the sphere takes up half the jar? The sphere is your trauma or the pain or the struggle or whatever it is. But as you grow and you're the jar, that pain doesn't have to. Now there's more space around it. Right? So as we're getting more of the right people, having the right conversations, being able to expand our jar and who we are as a human being, now what used to take up much of the space takes up this little grain in the corner.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's what the right people and places.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
so good. Thank you for sharing that.
Because I have to remind myself sometimes. Okay. Oh, the thing that stood out to me, I liked your question of what ignites you. I know we didn't talk about that much, but it ties in with your last name. It ties in with your idea of bringing out the magic within people, and our previous conversation about the inner 6-year-old, that joy, that life. Like, what does life mean? And for you, what ignites you, that brings out part of that soul as well. Who are you at that core? What is that authentic, multifaceted version of you? How do you light it on fire?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And then yesterday we were joking about the sparkle and the sunshine and just making it go everywhere and stick to everything. That's what I picture when I think of you. Is I'm picturing you with this cute little wand, throwing sparkles everywhere.
Like the pixie dust.
Like the little pixie dust, exactly. Oh my God, it's so cute. So I want to thank you, Nicole, for being here and sharing this time with us and sharing your heart.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Okay.
See you later.
All right, bye.
So our next guest is behind the scenes. Dr. Vivian, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. You're ready? Okay. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
We left at the same time, so I clicked on the blank space. Oh.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Vivian.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I've loved your show. I've just caught snippets of it through the morning. And yeah, all the time. We have a lot in common, like
Ooh.
all the healing, spirituality, and yeah, very fun.
Green wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I noticed too. I'm like, hey, they match.
Yeah. Green
But I think
painting behind Katharina.
Okay, so here's how I like to start every interview, just so that we get Dr. Vivian, not Dr. Vivian's business, not Dr. Vivian's elevator pitch, but you as a human being. So here's my question. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, it's really hard sometimes, but just 3 words, what would you love those words to be?
Oh, so just 3 words.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, maybe there's some words that mean like a lot of different things. So maybe truth seeking would be one.
Ooh.
Caring or compassionate along that line.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe courageous, or some might say foolishness, foolhardiness. Yeah.
Courageousness / foolishness. I'm going to write down both because it's not necessarily the word, just as you said, it's the energy behind the word and what it means to you. But that's what the next question is really all about, is to flush some of that out. So these are my only 2 pre-programmed questions. Okay. So if we take those words, the truth seeking, the caring or compassionate, and the courageousness / I wrote that down wrong.
Foolhardiness or foolishness.
Oh, I was like foulness. No. Okay. Foolishness.
I got you covered.
I do the same thing all the time.
It's all good. How do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
Well, truth seeking, I think I've just always been a truth seeker and kind of a justice seeker. All through so I'm a perinatal psychiatrist by, trade. I guess, my training is, medical school and then 5 years of psychiatry and then subspecialty in perinatal. So primarily helping women and couples, some men too, but it's mostly women who get referred to perinatal psychiatrists. And so helping them kind of navigate their mental health or addiction problem throughout mostly pregnancy and postpartum, or when they're trying to get pregnant. People get very nervous prescribing medications, justifiably in pregnant, like when there's a baby involved. And so, I can give advice on that, but there's also, I've just always been really interested in the psychotherapies and, talk therapies and helping people navigate their interpersonal world in a more helpful way. Because often depression and anxiety can be triggered by interpersonal challenges, whether it's, conflict with their life mate or conflict with their mother-in-law is not an uncommon one as well, or mother. So whoever that is, so conflict, role transitions are a really big thing in the perinatal population as well. So helping them navigate all the role transitions in a more helpful way. Grief, of course, can come up for some people as well. And just, social isolation or lack of social supports. And so IPT, or interpersonal psychotherapy, is probably the main therapy that I've been doing the last, couple decades or so. And then about 10 years after I graduated from med school, I discovered I had my own health crisis. I had wicked high blood pressure, like 220 over 110, 114, and like well into the stroke range. So pretty scary. And for 8 months, I didn't have the real diagnosis. So I did a deep dive into the medical literature, because there was a small chance, the internist told me, that it could be cancer causing it. And I was like, whoa, with 3 young children, what can I do to make my body as healthy as can be, to make my body as antagonistic to cancer as it can be. And what I learned just fascinated me, that there's this whole world of nutrition that can actually heal the human body. And they taught us nothing about this in medical training, like nothing. And I'm, you could say one of the lucky ones. My medical training did include at least a nutrition course. We probably had, I'm going to take a wild guess, 20 sessions, 20 like one-ish hour classes. But I learned 10 years later that absolutely nothing they taught me in med school about nutrition is in line with the science. Like, it was all kind of industry. Like, I'm sure they were well-meaning and they didn't mean to mislead us, but in fact they did mislead us. And so that's kind of my message now. I just, during the pandemic, I tried to talk to all my physician colleagues about, like, you guys, this is incredible news for me. Like, I don't know if you already know, but like, we can actually not just prevent disease, but we can reverse diseases, like easily, even with just food. But none of them wanted to hear about it. And I was like, how can this be? Like, it's cheaper than free. It's even cheaper to eat this way. There's no side effects. In fact, the only side effects are good ones. Like, you get great energy and regular bowels and sounder sleep, and like, no reflux, like just your symptoms go away. You get off medication. Like, it's like a magic bullet kind of thing. But none of them wanted to hear it. And I just felt like I was bursting with this world secret and had to share it. And eventually I decided, well, you know what, there are people who do want this and who do need this. And so I'm just going to create this free info session, and I'll just do it for whoever wants to hear it. And I emailed some friends and colleagues and I said, hey, I'm going to do this. It's totally free. If you want to come and hear what I've learned, you're welcome to come. And so I did that, I think 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago. And after the first one, people were like, okay, I shared lots of science. Like, I'm a medical doctor. Like, it's got to be scientific. I'm not just going to believe, like, anecdotes are interesting, but they just mean, like, maybe this could be a good thing, but like, you need to test it to know that it's actually, that there wasn't some other, other factor that was actually causing the improvement, or it wasn't just by chance alone. And so I made it scientific, but like understandable for anybody. And so I just shared this, and at the end they were like, okay, well, I'm convinced. So now what do I do? And I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I didn't have anything prepared for that. I was just like planning to share this good message, this good news to everybody. But I was like, okay, breakfast, you can do this, and lunch, and here's how you can make cheese, and and so I did it about a month later, and the same thing happened. And I was like, okay, there's like, people need this, people want this, and I would actually love to help people eat to reverse diseases. So it took me a little while to, to kind of reduce my perinatal psychiatry practice and just discharge people as they got better. And I stopped, for the most part, taking, new patients. And I still do perinatal psychiatry because there is a huge need out there, but I mostly just do e-consults now, which is like written doctor to doctor back and forth. And because people still, moms still need psychiatric medications in pregnancy and postpartum, and we want them to use the safest one, so they need guidance on that. And so I still do that. It's a lot quicker for me to just do a written consult than do a whole, full psychiatric assessment and dictate that if it's just, she's got this disorder and she's on this medication, is that safe? Should she take that or change it? And so I just give my written report back. But then I just, some women came up to me and said, like, I'd love for you to teach me how to eat this way. And I was like, okay, like, how should I do that? Like, I wanted to do it as a nonprofit because I just believe everyone deserves to know this stuff. And I didn't want to make it like just for the elite or and so I just started giving this free info session. And then after that, I would say I'm doing this like low cost course that I was calling the 5 day.
That I had, and sometimes my throat would close up.
Sorry, that was still on, I guess, from the Facebook watching you guys. And so I started offering this course, and just to get people started, I called it the 5 days of essentials. And then at the end of that, just kind of spontaneous, I said, you know what, it was just a small handful of women. And I said, you know, I've been thinking about this idea for a while that, you know, of starting like a women's community, like offering it worldwide. So it's not under my medical license because no one's got a worldwide medical license. And so I'm just basically, you know, a coach, like a wellness coach, a nutrition coach. And so, you know, I'll do like live sessions and Q&As and coaching calls and cooking demos and like whatever you guys need. And help you reverse diseases, like for ongoing support and guidance. And so they were like, sure, sign me up. And so that's what I'm growing now. So I started that a year and a bit ago. And so I've got my next free info session actually is on Thursday, tomorrow. I do it about every 3 months or so, kind of just when I have time. And so yeah, so that's how I kind of, I'm not really doing that free course live anymore with Q&A. At least I haven't for a while, but it's just in the membership site now. So people have access to that, and, you know, a substitutions course, and like, basically I'm just doing whatever it seems like they need. Yeah. And I'm having such a ball. Yeah. Like the results people are getting, it just, like, I'm constantly amazed. Things that they're experiencing that I didn't even know were possible. Like you know, there was one woman who joined and she had Hashimoto's, like autoimmune thyroid disease. And I know that autoimmune diseases can be reversed. And she had a whole host of other chronic symptoms and diseases as well, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, chronic pain, like of 20 years duration. And it seems like there was something else as well, but needed to lose a little weight. And so anyway, she joined. And when she joined, I said, when she came to the Q&A, I kind of have two avenues for helping people reverse diseases. One is just, here's how to eat generally healthy, whole food, plant-based. If you're already healthy, you know, this will help you stay healthy. Or if you have like actually a lot of chronic diseases, like can be pretty easily reversed, just eating a healthy, well-balanced whole food, plant-based diet. But for people with an autoimmune disease or like niggling diseases that are not reversing on, not that I can give anyone a written guarantee that I can reverse their disease, but if it's not going away on just eating a healthy, balanced whole food, plant-based diet, there's a different protocol that I call like the fast track healing protocol. And so I told her that. She was like, I don't know if I can do that, you know, I have a lot of sensitivities. And I was like, no problem. You know, there's no rush. I just wanted to let you know that you might need to do this, you know, stricter protocol if you want to get rid of the autoimmune disease, but you'll be very much helped if you eat this other way anyway. So whatever you choose. And within, I don't know if it was even two weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the most, she said, wait, what was that healing protocol you told me about? And she actually did it. And within 3 weeks, she came to the Q&A 3 weeks later and said, I've been to Emerge twice. I had hyperthyroidism, which is, she needed to decrease her medication basically because her thyroid started to come back online already. And I told her at the start, I was like, I don't know when your thyroid's going to come back online or how much of it will come back online. But anyway, and her doctor wouldn't repeat the thyroid antibodies for months. And I said to her, you know, if they've only been done once, like, you know, it's probably reversed your disease. So sure enough, she did the antibodies 3 or 4 months later and her antibodies were gone. So, you know, it's in remission or it's reversed or, you know, it's gone for now anyway. And it's, you know, she's, yeah, still. And then another woman with Hashimoto's, joined just last October, and very similar story. She went hyperthyroid within, I think, 3 or 4 weeks or so. Now she had a goiter, which is a big lump in her neck. And 3 weeks in, she put a message in the forum, the membership forum, and she said, "You guys, like, I knew I was losing weight, but I've lost 15 pounds. I just weighed myself, and I can't believe it, but my goiter is gone." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, what's your doctor say?" And so she hadn't seen her doctor yet, but then when she did, she's like, "Yeah, my doctor can't believe it, but it's gone." And she just texted, or just like sent me a message like 3 or 4 days ago and said, "By the way, my goiter is still gone and I'm still feeling fantastic, and energy's amazing, and bowels regular," and like just all these great side effects. Oh, another amazing thing for her was she had severe hand pain, like the joints in her hands. She didn't have arthritis. She'd had imaging. She'd had blood work for rheumatoid arthritis, especially given she already had one autoimmune disease, because often you have one, you develop more and more. But she had such severe hand pain that she couldn't turn door handles.
Mhm.
Door handles are not that hard to turn, right? Couldn't open jars either, but jars are harder to open for a lot of people. 3 weeks, it was gone. I was like, what? Yeah. And just so many people, another woman with high cholesterol, and she joined because she went to her doctor and was given a prescription. She was 52, given a prescription for a statin. And and she went home and she's like, okay, well, of course I'm going to have to take a statin because both my parents have high cholesterol, so it makes sense. But when she got home, she's like, wait a second. She put the prescription down on her counter and she said, "I'm not going to take that. I know someone who can help me." And so she joined the community, and suddenly I'm getting feedback. Can you hear that? Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she joined the community, and she was planning to take I think she called it the slow road. Like she was going to transition to eating this way over a year or two. And I was like, great, whatever. If you can do incremental improvements in your diet, then within no time, you're going to be eating so much better, and your body's going to thank you every day that you're eating better. But after, I think, a week or so, I think she heard these other women who were on the fast track healing protocol, and she's like, I'm going to jump in and do that too, because I have to do blood work in 4 weeks for repeating her cholesterol profile. And she's like, I want to see what this can do for me. So she did it, and then got a call 4 weeks later from her doctor saying, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't need to take that statin anymore. And so, yeah, like it's just people are losing weight who need to lose weight, and it falls off. They tell me it's delicious. It falls off. It's like, it's not hard to do. It's not expensive. A lot of people think, oh no, I can't afford to eat plant-based. It's very expensive. No, it's cheaper. Like if you think a bag of dried lentils versus steaks, like there's no comparison, right? Yeah.
Lentils is one of those things where I didn't think I liked lentils because it used to be in soup growing up, and I didn't like the soup, and I blamed it on the lentils.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I'm like, okay, what has protein that's lower in starch, that's better on my gut, that I can take out things like potatoes that give me cystic acne, or rice that just makes me bloat like crazy. I'm like, okay, lentils. What can I do with lentils?
Yeah.
And I love lentils.
I was going to say, like, I wasn't sure about lentils either, but then I heard that you could sprout them. So I actually have some lentil sprouting on my countertop, which is awesome for like salads, and you're getting the nutrition in there, and without having to do all the, the cooking. And because sometimes it's like lentils, right? They've got a certain flavor with it, but it's like, sprouting it and you put it on a salad, and it's just like, this is some good protein. Like, I know I'm getting good protein in here without feeling like I'm having another starch.
Right.
I didn't know you could sprout lentils.
Mm-hmm. It's really fast and easy.
Like from the dry lentils that you get in. Really?
Yeah.
You can sprout just about everything.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yeah.
I have like 2 bags of lentils in my cupboard still after I just ate a bag. So
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't mean there's magic in just lentils, but like
yeah.
lentils, chickpeas, beans, any kind of beans, edamame beans are super amazing. Tofu, tempeh, like any of the legume. But actually there's protein in just about everything. Like there's more protein in broccoli than in steak, apparently, you know, per calorie. So obviously you need to eat a bucket load of broccoli for the same number of calories of steak. But yeah, everything's got protein. And in fact, there's you guys probably know about it, but there's like a North American or a Western myth out there that, ooh, careful, you need to get your protein. Whereas really the question should be, how can I eat less protein, or at least less of the protein that's harming me and causing cancer and, you know, diabetes and cardiovascular disease and all these diseases. So yeah, for the most part, we don't need to worry about protein. Like we only need like 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight.
Okay, wait.
Unless you're older or you're a super high level athlete, then you need more. Like if you're older and you're worried about sarcopenia, like muscle wasting, then you need more, like I think they say 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And if you're like a high level athlete, you need more like 1.5-ish, maybe 1.6. Don't quote me on the numbers, but like you need more if you're but you don't need meat. In fact, there's a study that showed that high level athletes who were omnivores actually had a higher risk of heart disease than sedentary people, because they ate more meat and dairy and eggs. And so they were clogging their arteries that much faster because they were eating more of these food, because they ate more calories overall. More food overall. Not that I ever want people to count calories. I don't recommend that at all. But, you know, yeah.
I think bringing up the point that knowing your numbers is also important, because you'll see the studies on 2 different sides, or the conversation on 2 different sides. Eat more protein. Well, don't eat too much protein. But if you don't know where you sit,
it's true.
How do you know which advice works for you? So I used your number, the 0.8, with my body weight in kilos, just an approximation. And I'm like, do I eat that many grams of protein? Most days, no. And so my mindset of I need to get more protein means that is a good mindset to have. Sorry?
So, but how do you know how much protein you're getting? Because you need to count the protein in everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I usually keep a food journal. Okay. Not all the time, but I'll go through probably like a week or 2, just what is my average meal? What kinds of things am I eating?
Right.
Can I reassess in my own brain where I think I'm at versus where I'm actually at to like redirect myself?
Right.
So it's not an everyday thing. It's just, am I thinking the same way that I'm doing, or have I slowly drifted away?
Yeah. Well, a family physician friend of mine once asked me, how much protein do you get? And I was like, I don't know. I've never added it up. I just know I'm getting enough. And she said, well, if you ever calculate it, let me know. So I actually did. I put in ChatGPT what I eat in a day, and it spat. I said, how much protein is in da 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 da. So I'm getting about 1.1, a little over 1.1 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight.
Yeah. See, I probably eat 50 to 60 grams on a good day. And on a bad day, like 30, maybe 40.
And so, yeah.
No wonder I'm hungry. No wonder, my muscles are falling off. So just knowing where we are is important. Yeah. Ooh, okay, Dr. Vivian, we could talk about this forever, but I also want to know so many more things. How have you decided to share this message? So I know that you're now doing the workshops, the free information sessions at one point. You mentioned 5 days of essentials. Is that another online program?
It's a mini course. It's just to help people get started eating this way. I will probably turn that into a digital course, but I haven't actually done that yet. I've done it live a number of times, and now I just have it in the membership site. So just for members to do when they join to help them get started eating this way. The main thing I guess I'm doing is the community, the women, it's called the Women's Health Hub community, which is available to women worldwide. And so we do, live sessions each month. The promise is like 3 30-minute live sessions a month. Sometimes they're longer than that, but and sometimes there's more than 3, but the promise is like a minimum of 3, because I'm planning to do this till the day I drop dead, I think. And so I want it to be like low intensity for me and low intensity also for the women, because women are like, people are busy. And so I want to make it easy for them to get started eating this way. And then whenever they have questions, there's like regular info sessions and Q&A sessions, coaching calls, because some people, they know what to do, but then they struggle with doing it. Like just yesterday, we had a coaching call about a Q&A session about cravings. She came with saying, I have these terrible nighttime cravings. So we talked about, how to help her with that. And weight gain and, menopausal weight gain and like whatever people are asking about, that's what we talk about. And that's, what I help them with. I've also been doing like cooking demos and what else? There's a recipe site. Actually, my son created this recipe site and he was showing it to me. He did this just for fun. He's a computer science student and he created it for fun. And I was like, ooh, could I use that for my members in some way? Like, could you put like just whole food plant-based recipes on, or just when he was like, sure, yeah. So now we've got this recipe site where I'm kind of bit by bit putting up all our family's favorite recipes. What else do we do? I do a quarterly retreat just online for annual members. So we just had that a couple of weeks ago, and next one in July. So, and those are really fun. It's like there's like I have some meditation and setting your intentions for the retreat. There's a teaching on something. So in January, we talked about cognitive health because some are concerned about memory and others are concerned about like not wanting to have memory problems and dementia. The most recent one was about, weight loss, weight management, like how to lose weight. And so it's sort of whatever I see, whoever's signing up for it, who's going to be attending live, I kind of look at what might be most helpful for most of those people and kind of talk about that. So what else? Retreats.
Do you write books? Well, you're obviously on a podcast now, so.
I haven't got a book yet. I would love to write. It's just I used to write all the time. Like when I was in med school, actually, I used to write morning pages. I don't know if you've heard of that book, The Artist's Way by, I think, Julia. Yeah.
Good one.
Lovely. So I used to do that. And actually I credit doing morning pages to meeting my amazing husband. That's another story. So no, I haven't written a book yet, but I plan to. I'll get to that. It's on the list. I started a podcast, but I've only done one like draft episode. So it's not on the podcast platforms. It's just on YouTube for now. I'm planning to get my YouTube channel going more. There's nothing really on it right now that's publicly accessible anyway. So that's just Reversing Diseases is the YouTube channel. And I've switched everything to Reversing Diseases for, like social. So Instagram is my handle is Reversing Diseases. My website is reversingdiseases.org. And so my email is info@reversingdiseases.org. I also have a website where I have all the stuff that I do, like including the perinatal psychiatry and supports and resources and services around that. I also train therapists to do interpersonal psychotherapy. So that website is just my name.ca, vivianpolak.ca. yeah, I think, have I covered everything?
Okay.
A lot.
Yeah. We'll switch it up a little bit then. We'll get a little more creative for a moment.
Okay.
So there are lots of different ways that you share your message. I mean, the top 3 are the typical speaking, podcasting, writing, right? But then there's many different ways. And you mentioned community cooking, online retreats, that kind of stuff. But here's the playful part.
Okay.
If you could do any kind of sharing your message that you haven't done yet, what would you love to do? And if you want to get super creative, go right ahead. Like genie in a bottle. Let's snap our fingers.
Well, you know, being a nonprofit, I've had some volunteers, like students, starting to apply for grants for me, and they've come up with some amazing ideas for sharing the message and getting it out there. And so, you know, part of it is like not having the time to do all the things that I would love to do.
Yeah.
And so once I have some money, I could hire people but one of the things I've done once is a potluck, like a local community potluck, whole food plant-based. Once I get grants, I want to do just catered dinners so people can just show up and eat a healthy, delicious meal and hear some information about why they might want to eat this way for their health. And I mainly focus on health, but of course it's also for planetary health, for the animals, like, you know, compassion for, like, I've never been an animal rights activist, but it's funny that eating this way, after a certain number of years, my husband says the same thing. We totally lost the taste for like nothing could make me eat. It might sound gross, but like a dead animal's muscle, like nothing could make me bite into any kind of meat. It's just so off-putting now for me. But no judgment on anyone who eats meat or eats animal product, but it's really off-putting. It's funny, for the first couple of years after we started eating plant-based, we used to meet up with this family from BC. We used to live in Vancouver, and we used to meet up with these friends from BC at a campsite in Ontario. And we would always sign up for the Sunday brunch. And at the Sunday brunch, they had like the spread of everything you'd get at a Canadian breakfast and lunch, including bacon. And I used to say, like, I'm half Italian. I used to say I could never be a vegetarian because of bacon. Because I, you know, used to put bacon in all kinds of things for the flavor. And so every summer, well, but only for 2 summers, we were like, oh, you want to have a rasher of bacon? And so we each had a rasher of bacon. And the 3rd summer, I said, oh, do you want to have a rasher of bacon? And I didn't really want it at all. Or maybe we just saw that neither of us had it and commented, you know, on that. That we just, oh, you didn't have bacon either. And I forget how that went, but I just noticed that by year 3, we just were not interested in meat at all. We also go to this like fancy Christmas party, and they bring out these sliders, these bison sliders. And again, for the first couple of years of eating this way, we're like, oh yeah, it's lean meat, it's pretty healthy. Like, sure, we'll have that. But by the 3rd year, we were totally not interested in having it. So it's funny how it changes. So my main focus is health and helping people get their health back and feel fantastic. Yeah.
I love all of this. And you already got to the point of me asking you how to find you, but we'll avoid that just for the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I like hearing the different ways, because people on the show, when they're watching or when they're here, some of us feel like we have to be a speaker, or we have to write, or we have to do podcasts, and they feel pushed into it. That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
If you want to do it, then my question really is, with these guests and people like you, Dr. Vivian, is, was there ever a time that you didn't like doing it? How did you get over it? Like, for those people wanting to share their message, how do they get over those humps? So was there ever a time that you didn't like speaking or that you didn't like writing? Because you mentioned writing during your medical training.
Yeah. My past life, like my first, not past life, but like earlier in my life, my first degree was actually in business administration. And I remember, because I was really into languages in my adolescence and learned a bunch of languages. And so I thought, when I was 18 and in France for a year, because after high school, I didn't know, I was thinking either medicine or music to play the flute or languages. And I was like, I don't think I should go to university right now because I need more focus. If I eventually want to go to med school, I don't want to mess up in my first year and then never have marks that are actually high enough to get into med school. So I went to France for a year because I knew I wanted to speak French well. And so when I was there, I thought, okay, languages and business, that'll make a good solid career. And so I went to biz school, but when I was in the fourth year and, my final, which is only really 2 years at the university where I went, you do 2 years of whatever. And so, and then 2 years of business. So it's basically, I call it like an MBA for kids because we have no work experience. So, but it's all the same courses and stuff as the MBA at that school. And so when I was graduating, like not graduating, but like in my second year, like my last year of the training of the program, I was like, wait, what jobs are you guys applying for? And I was like, how did I not know this? That does not appeal to me at all. And so but I ended up going on exchange to Italy, and then I lived in Switzerland a few years and worked, and that's where I decided like, I actually do want to do medicine, and I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician and work in developing countries, and then mental health was just so fun for me. But getting back to your question, which was
was there ever a time where you didn't
want to speak?
You didn't like reading?
Yeah. So when I was in biz school, I was going to tell you, I had to give a presentation. It was a group presentation. And I was terrified. I was up there with my group and, each person had a certain bit to speak on. It was not even that long a presentation. And I was like shaking, my voice was, I was so nervous. And then we had to do another group presentation, but only one person was presenting. And I was thinking like, not me, like you guys wouldn't want me to do it because I'm thinking, and they all wanted me to do it. And I was like, and I decided to take it on as a challenge because I thought I want to be able to do this. And so what I did was before the presentation I had to do on my own, I went to the auditorium, which was this like beautiful room with, kind of theater-like seating. And I went when it was closed. It was evening and not, there's no one in it. I mean, it was open. But so I went in, I did my presentation as if I had a full audience and then finished. And then I did it again. And this was like way back when there were those, what do you call those, like slides, like that we've got smart boards now. And
those it's like the clear plastic
transparencies. And yes. So I was using one of those and I was like, asking the audience a question and I'd write down the answer. And I did it 3 times. And then, each time I tried to do something better than I had done. It's like, I should walk around a bit. And then, I should use my arms a bit so I don't look like I'm stiff. And so, I should smile, so I just tried to kind of do it. And then when I actually gave, so I really knew the material well, and I felt confident in what I was saying. And so when I gave the presentation, I was like, that was kind of fun. Still a little scary, but kind of fun. And then my first job after biz school was, so I'd applied for this job in Switzerland. And while I was waiting to find out about that job as a case writer in a big business school, I got just a fun job in Mexico at this hotel, and I was a GO, gentil organisateur. So just like doing whatever is needed and taking people teaching them water skiing or scuba diving in the pool or whatever. And so when my plane landed, the Canadian GOs met me and they said, "Oh, so are you the aerobics instructor?" And I was like, no, I'm not an aerobics instructor. So they didn't make me do that. But what they did make me do was MC all the night shows. And I was like, what? Like that, this does not sound like something I should be doing. But I was the only one who could speak French, Spanish, and English. And they had all these Mexicans, all these French Canadians in English. And so I was like, okay. And it kind of just doing it more would be my suggestion. So if you're giving a talk, like just practice it. Do it in front of the bathroom mirror. Do it in front of someone who loves you. Do it for nobody first, and just practice what you want to say. And like, I do believe it's a skill that anybody can learn. If you're super terrified, the psychiatrist in me would say, talk to your doctor, like check your thyroid, do some blood work. And like, maybe you've got an anxiety disorder that you don't necessarily need medication for, but maybe that would help too. And if the only anxiety is presenting, I mean, most people say they'd rather die than speak in public. So I wouldn't put anyone on medication if they just have anxiety public speaking. But
yes. So Dr. Vivian, I do have to use this as the close to our interview. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and of course your insights. But I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes just to give a little bit of a recap of our favorite moments.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna let's start with me, and then I can go use the bathroom before our next guest. So one of the things that stood out to me was I loved that you were willing to share, and this is the hard part, that medical school, your experience of medical school didn't have enough education on nutrition. There are only a few people that know that share that. And when you were, how should I nicely word this? When you're saying things that most people don't believe are true, it can be very difficult to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I want to applaud you for the courage to have those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you, no, that's more questions, insights, because I want to ask you more questions. Yeah, no, I love all of that. I love that you talked about where you're at with your high blood pressure and a stroke risk. I have family members that actually took some strokes because of stress and anxiety and all of that. And knowing that nutrition can play a role in that, as well as many other things, is quite reassuring. Yeah. Like how much of our symptoms can change with just this much.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Vivian, I'll let you go next. Katharina, we have about 2 minutes. Keep her on track and I'll be right back.
Okay. So I want to applaud you guys for all your curiosity, your great questions. And yeah, it's fun talking with other people, about this stuff, and your openness. Like, it seems like we're all healers here, and we all want to help people and help people feel better. And so I love that connection between us. And
yeah, and me too. And I'm so glad, even speaking of what Laura said as well, is that I'm and going back to what you'd like people to say about you, and that truth seeking is one of those things. And then I feel, it's very much in line with your business and what you're doing now, and it's telling the truth and about the power of nutrition that it does have for healing, and getting that out there with people who may not be receptive to that, and the courage that it's taking to do that on your part, and all that together. You can only do that if you have a compassionate heart. So I applaud you for doing this work and getting the word out there for all the people who need it and who are looking for the healing through their food.
Thank you. Yeah. And then truth seeking is, we didn't get into it, but it's also about like relationships and conflict and, helping people kind of come together and connect. And because that's also related to food. People switch to eating this way, and sometimes they're the only one in their household. And so it can be really challenging. Yeah. 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 So that's a big part of what I do as well, and helping people kind of navigate that. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Dr.
Thank
Vivian, for
you.
being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
doing this. Yeah. Thank you both.
We'll
Love
chat
to hear
later. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And we do have our guest in the background. Karen, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. I know you've been patiently waiting. And you have your book prominently displayed. Look, I can see it.
One of the books.
One of the books, yes.
My most recent book.
Yeah.
Is it light enough? Do I need?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So I think you know my pattern by now. I like to start off the interviews with a different question to shake things up, get to know Karen as a human being before everything that Karen does. So here's my question, Karen, as I get ready. Okay, Karen, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
I'm going to make it 4. She loves and trusts herself.
Oh. Loves and trusts herself. You made a sentence.
It's one of the things that I use, and I give people peace tips, and that's one of the things that I suggest people do to love and trust themselves, and everything comes from that.
I think you just answered my next question then, because my next question is, how do those 3 words, or 3 if we include an and sign instead of the word and, the loves and trusts herself, how does that play a role in your key message? But I think that is your key message.
It's part
to
of it.
love and trust yourself.
Yeah.
So what's the other part of your key message?
Well, the book, Let's Be Peace, which has been out for a couple of months now, is all about finding ways to be peace within. And my belief system is that, and the contributors in the book, is that when we are peaceful inside, we will project, we will be healthier. And when we are healthier, we will project peace. And when we are peaceful, that's how we're going to find peace in the world. I really believe it's one person at a time. And when each one of us exude peace, we will create peace in the world, and we will be healthier. The book has 20 contributors, mostly complementary and alternative health practitioners, which is the other part of my mission. The first part of my mission is to spread peace in the world, and the other part is to let people know they have lots of alternatives. And to love and trust yourself is one of the peace tips that we give out. If you go to our website, www.letsbepeace.com, and you can download a PDF. Just sign up and then download a PDF of peace tips, which later on I can give you all the peace tips if you're interested. But love and trust yourself is, to me, the key. When we love ourselves and when we trust ourselves, we then know it's our own GPS systems that tell us the best way to be peaceful and to be healthy.
So, of course, there's a story behind why you got into this. Can you tell us a little bit more on the personal side? Like, what inspired loving yourself and trusting yourself? How did you get
there's been so many things, but the concrete things were about, well, I've been into, for myself, doing mostly alternative and complementary medicine. I, to this day, take no pharmaceuticals. And about 22 years ago, I was with a group, and we were attempting to launch a health and alternative health and wellness and positivity channel. which has not yet happened. It will someday, but I think it was probably good that it didn't happen 20 years ago. People were not the world was not necessarily ready for it. And during the pandemic, I was doing some work with mentoring. I'm on the board of Columbia College in Chicago, and we were talking to graduating seniors, and I had one of my Emmys sitting here, and my first book was it's called "It's About Time," my award-winning TV career, and it was all about the Emmys that I won and the people that I know, and of course, I can hold this one up to you.
Oh, cool.
So that would, anyway, during that conversation, one of the students said to me, "Gee, you should write a book about how to win an Emmy." And my response was, I think I told you the story last year, Laura. My response was, well, you can't really write a book about how to win an Emmy because it's not really quantifiable. Plus, the television academy would never let me use the word Emmy. But it was during the pandemic, and that gave me the motivation to write what turned out to be a prescriptive memoir. And in it, the last 2 chapters, I talk about my spiritual journey and my health journey. And the health journey included what I call a heart episode, which is like 17 years ago now. But because I don't believe that your heart would ever attack itself. So in spite of what the doctors called it, I called it an episode. And that led me to in the journey of knowing more about how the traditional system works, and as opposed to what I was doing in the alternative realms. And at the same time, we were already working on doing a channel. So anyway, after I published the book in 2022, I was going to do a sequel, and the sequel was going to be about the alternative health and wellness, and my spiritual journey, because I discovered my angels and my guides, and was doing a lot of activities in the star seeds, and a lot of things that were considered unusual in my community. But I realized that in order to really do justice to the alternative and complementary health, I really needed to find the experts, because I wanted this book to be what I wanted the channel to be. I wanted it to be something that not only would people learn how to find peace within themselves, but how to be healthier and how to make decisions for themselves. And I've always said, I don't care what you do, I just want you to know you have alternatives. So the Let's Be Peace book has 20 contributors of varying modalities, who the only thing that they all, I asked all of them to do was to address what Let's Be Peace means to them, and how they encourage other people to be peace. So all 20, besides me, all 20 people answered those questions and 10 other questions that I asked about their modalities. I'm not sure, Catherine, if I'm actually answering your question, but it goes back to me wanting to be sure that people find ways to be healthier and to trust themselves, and what I call in the book your GPS system. And we all have it. Most of us have not been trained to really use it. We've been trained to give our power to others. And I've realized through this whole process that it's the reason I chose to come to the earth this time was to spread peace and to help people be healthier. Did I address the question?
I think so. I
can go on forever on these. So just ask another question. I mean, it is so wonderful to wake up in the morning and know I'm here. Yeah. It took me 7 decades, but I know. I know now. And I know there's much more that I'm here for, but that's what this book's about. The next book is going to be called Let's Be Joy. And it will be a continuation of this, but as opposed to answering the question, what Let's Be Peace means to you, I'm asking everybody what's Let's Be Joy means to you.
So since you asked everybody else what peace means to them, I'm just going to ask the same question of you. What does peace mean to you, Karen?
It means knowing how powerful we are, knowing that there really is, we have everything inside of us that we need. And it's trusting my angels and my guides and the universe that I'm protected. I can't say that I do that 24/7, but I'm peaceful when I remember that we have a lot of helpers out there. We're born with, I believe we are born, there's a woman named Sue Storm, the angel lady, who I've done quite a bit of work with over the last 5 or 6 years. And we're born with guardian angels, and I now talk to them very often. Even when I have technological issues, there's 2 angels, Bernard and Raymond, that I call when I need technology. So peace is just knowing that we are not alone, that we have so much assistance from what I believe are other realms. And that helps me be peaceful. And then I have all kinds of peace tips that, did you want me to read them now, or do you want what I'll be giving out to anybody who goes to our website?
I'll get to it, but I have a question first.
I bet you have a lot of questions, Laura, because you're really good at this.
I'm just a super curious person. We talked about our inner 6-year-old earlier today, and I was like, that's who runs my show when we're doing interviews. Right. That inner 6-year-old is just like, but how does that work? But how does that work? But how does that connect? But oh my God.
And you've never lost that, Laura, which is part of why you're so delightful.
I have actually lost it. Oh, there was probably a good 20 years where I lost that part of me. But Corey and Blue Talks was one of those communities that helped me to find my peace, my joy, that version of me that I had forgotten for so long. And it really does take that community, since we're talking about community too, to hold that space and support you, not just on your good days, but on the bad days too.
Yes,
and that's really
what I do. That it's back.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would have loved the Laura before too, but it's nice that
she was very much a like hide in the corner kind of Laura. But as a kid, I was very much on the stage going to everything. But my question is kind of around that though. You said that peace to you means that there are a lot of helpers out there and that you're not alone. Now, that version of me that isn't this version of me felt very much alone. It like I squished down my spirituality because just like you have gifts, you have knowledge, and not everybody is accepting of those. So that version of myself was not accepted. You know, all the stories, that's for another day because this is about you. But how can you help people see that they are not alone from the inside out? Like, what is it that's making us feel that way, that we are alone?
Because the outside world, we're more, by and large, we are trained to pay attention to the outside world, which I believe right now it is more important than ever not to.
Yeah.
One of the things in the peace tips is to know we're not alone, and to know that we're all one, and to not let not watch the news, and not let that not let that inside. I haven't watched news, and I used to produce news, but I haven't watched news in well over, it's traditional news, 20 years, and there's nothing I need to know that I don't know. But in terms of the spirituality, when I look back now, I'm absolutely positive I knew about my angels and guides when I was very young, but I didn't, that I think it's very typical that was not acknowledged by anything in my outside world by my parents. But so I kind of suppressed that. Um, so and then it was after I heard Sue Storm on a radio show, and contacted her, and she got me, so much in touch with my, I mean, and now I literally can see my angels and guides going, yay, she finally figured it out. but that's it's I want to say it's acquired, but it really isn't. Right now we are so, I believe we are so, the veils are being removed, and we are so much more able to be in touch with other realms than we've ever been. I'm sure most of your listeners have heard about the ascension and whatever that means to you. I mean, that's, it's a catchword right now. But the fact that we are evolving and we are changing, and in spite of what it looks like on the outside, we really are moving into an extraordinarily wonderful time. And the most I could do to encourage people who are not seeing it yet is to just give yourself even 5 minutes a day to be quiet. Just quiet yourself and attempt to just see what your GPS tells you. See what's going on inside. I mean, one of the things that I've learned to do is I do gratitudes before I go to bed, and when I get up, and that helps me be peaceful, and it helps me realize that I do have. I mean, there's so much magic in the world, and now I'm aware of that magic, and when it happens, when I ask Raymond or Bernard with something technical, and it doesn't instantly get fixed, but it always gets fixed. And one time I was having it was only a couple of years ago, really bad problem with my emails, and it went on for like 3 days. And the next time I talked to Sue, I said, how come they didn't come through before that? And their response was, because I'm not yet gifted with being able to quite hear everything myself. And they said, because you needed to rest. So they didn't fix it. and at one point they also said, well, we don't really know a lot about email, but we'll see what we can do. So I know these sound like fantasy stories. They're my reality now. But I think everybody, no matter how alone you feel, if you go inside and listen, you'll feel something, and it's whatever you believe in, whether it's religion, whether it's the universe, whatever you call it, whether it's angels and guides, whether it's star seeds, which I'm very much into these days. Just listen, quiet yourself and listen. And just if in the morning when you wake up, before you get out of bed, if you think about, gee, what do I have to be grateful for? One thing is I just woke up. That's a good start. Another thing, in my case, I have a lovely little apartment, which I call my sanctuary, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for friends and relatives, and very often I will name them and thank them for being in my life. When I make the gratitudes, I am more aware of being peaceful, and I think, one of the big things, and I'm pretty much giving the paid peace tips one by one, is to forgive yourself and others. It is so life preserving to forgive yourself, to forgive others. And I think, most of us think, oh, gee, I need to forgive that person. But we also need to forgive ourselves for whatever it is that's bothering us. Just, forgive ourselves. I mean, I have a fun story where a girlfriend, a girlfriend and I, and the guy who I was living with at the time, went to an event at the top of one of the mountains here, and the car broke down, and I was blaming him, and he was blaming me. And she looked at me and she said, "Why does it have to be anybody's fault? It just happened." And that's so helped. And to me, I mean, I'm grateful for Rosemary for telling me, but it was also the angels and guides giving me a message. It doesn't have to be anybody's fault.
Mhm.
So I think you noticed what I was sneakily doing is asking you questions to naturally bring out all of the tension.
Yeah, pretty good. You're good, Laura. I know that.
But also to go on with the trusting of yourself, forgiving yourself, that kind of thing. We had that conversation today too. I'm going to call myself out because I yawn, and it's not because anybody is boring.
No, actually, yawning is a sign of listening. It's especially now with the veils being lifted. Yawning is very important. It means you're getting it.
Yeah.
So
I tell people all the time, yawning is my way of processing the emotions and the energy. And I'm like, because the whole day, the whole week, I get so excited that sometimes I forget to breathe. So
not a good idea. Actually, that's the first tip. I give breathing tips.
See, there you go.
You want to do one of those? I usually start.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure you know this, but something that a gift a friend gave me is when she right after I started working on the book, she said when she walks and when she's timing things, she goes, "Let's be peace." So as opposed to say one Mississippi, she says one let's be peace. So that's what I do with all my yoga and with my my breathing. So this is breathe in 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. So I'll do the counting and you guys can sample breathing. Breathe in 1 let's be peace, 2 let's be peace, 3 let's be peace, 4 let's be peace. Hold 1 let's be peace, 2 let's be peace, 3 let's be peace, 4 let's be peace. Breathe out 1 let's be peace, 2 let's be peace, 3 let's be peace, 4 let's be peace. Hold 1 let's be peace, 2 let's be peace, 3 let's be peace, 4 let's be peace. And it's really any breathing technique that that works for you. There, Andrew Weil has, I think his is 4, 7, 8, but whatever it is to just remind you to just stop and breathe.
Yep.
I'll send you. I think I did send you the peace tips, Laura. But it's a reminder. I don't always remember either, and it's just reminding yourself to breathe. But yawning is a good sign. I don't take exception to that. I feel that you're really absorbing it.
Very much so. And we ended at 2:22 my time, so I figured that might be a nice little message for you.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, all the 222s, the 444s. That I'm noticing more and more that at those times, and it is believed that those are times where the angels we're paying more attention to the angels, and they're paying more attention to us. So 1111 is a big one.
Yeah.
111.
I haven't stopped seeing ones all week. It's just like everywhere.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I don't have all the exactly what there's interpretations for what
I don't know. I look it up every time. I don't remember.
I was gonna say the angel lady can tell you that. And working with Sue Storm, I've learned so much and grown, and just feel just knowing that the angels are there. And I'm also listen to a woman named Diana Cooper, and she does a lot of work with the Pleiades and the Andromedans and the unicorns and the dragons. So I am enjoying those realms too.
So I'm going to have more questions, and hopefully they'll pull out more of those tips. So when I think of the word peace, I do have some friends who, if they go into any moment of peace, the whole time they're there, it's usually just a split second, because then the rest of the time they go, but when is it going to end? Because it's totally going to end. This won't last for long. And it's like they're constantly watching their watch, mentally or physically, doesn't matter. How do we get people to be present, I guess is the best way to explain this.
Well, I believe, and I know you do too, that you really can't make you can't make anybody do anything. The only control we have is over ourselves. We can remind people.
Yeah.
And I usually will do a reminder about breathing, and it's funny how many people will laugh, but then they'll stop and breathe like you just did. Again, it's the gratitudes. It's the don't feel like a victim. One of the things that so many people are led to perceive is that they're a victim. And I believe that we came here for a purpose. We know what our purpose is. Somewhere deep inside, we know the reason we came here, and we've made choices. We've made conscious choices to come here at this time, which I believe is a very evolutionary time. And we came here to help Mother Earth. Yesterday was Earth Day, which is kind of cool. To help Mother Earth evolve. It's interesting because what I've said as long as I can remember, that Mother is going to be here, is going to be just fine. Whether we'll be allowed to stay on her or not is what may be in question. But I don't believe that's in question anymore. I think we've evolved to the point that Mother Earth will clean herself and we'll stay here, and the kinder we are to Mother Earth. And one of the things, I'm very fortunate that I live near the beach, and I can go out. I have a tree that I adopted, and all my social media, I have pictures of me with tree, and I just go and I hug the tree and get all kinds of strange looks. But the tree gives me great energy, and I hope that I give tree great energy. And whenever I talk about tree, it's with a capital T, because that's tree's name is Tree.
Oh, nice. We used to have this tree. I would go for a walk every morning when I dropped my daughter off at school so that I could sing at the top of my lungs, because I love power vocals. It would just make me feel better. But along my walk, I found this one tree, and it was perfectly aligned with my shoulder. Like if I just put my hand out, the discoloration and shape of the bark on that tree was the shape of my left hand at the perfect height of my left hand.
That's awesome.
And I didn't know it was there. This is like 20 feet into the woods, and I just felt called to walk into the woods following a deer trail, and then called to this tree. And then I look at the tree, and I went to go hug it, touch it, to be like, yes, I love trees. I saw the handprint. I have pictures, okay?
Have you gone back?
What message is that?
Yeah. So then after that, I would visit the tree every day when I would go for my walk, and I would talk to the tree, and it would give me energy, and like my eyes would go all weird because it felt like it was giving me energy, to the point where a month before we moved, it basically told me, you're good now. You're done with me. Like the phase with me is over. I love you. You can just keep walking now. And I was sad because I missed my tree, but at the same time I was happy because it served me.
Explain how you heard that, how you knew that.
Some of it is auditory. Some of it is physical sensations. Some of it is an inner knowing. I have lots of different ways all happening at the same time, and they're still so subtle that I have to pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I just know certain things and have since I was a little girl, but and had no knowledge of how I knew it. And it was only recent that somebody said, I'm clairsentient. Is that when you just know things?
I think no.
Cognition.
Cognitive, yeah.
Yeah. Clairsentient is feeling.
Oh, that's the senses. Okay. See, I'm learning those ones.
Clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient.
Oh, I see a lot. Yeah, the clairvoyance.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the GPS, just trusting yourself, trusting that the messages you have. The first time I went to to someone who channeled an entity, it was when I was still living in New York. I was program director at NBC in New York, and I, as far as I was concerned, I was curious, like you, Laura, but it was, it was kind of woo woo, and it was. When I went for a session, and I ended up going for several sessions, it was an entity named Lucius. And one of the things he said was, trust your imagination. It's mostly memory. And that was one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given. It took me years to really embrace that. But if we realize, and if we believe like I do, that we've been here many, 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 many times, there is a lot that we know. There is, even whether it was, on the earth plane or on another plane. So I've always loved that. Trust your memory. It's mostly, trust your imagination. It's mostly memory. And that encourages us to really be creative and, and imagine things and know that things are possible.
So I'm going to guess that one of your peace tips has to do something along the lines of creativity, self-expression, somewhere in that realm.
Not specifically.
Not specifically,
but I think I'm going to add that now.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, that's a good one. No, it's yeah, but we've pretty much gone through most of it.
Yeah. For me, it's like weaved in with that authenticity, with the identity. It's just like that knowing of who I am and that I'm allowed to show up as that version.
It goes back to loving and trusting yourself.
Yeah. There you go. So did you say that we went through like most of them?
Oh, we did. It's discover a lot of different modalities, and then use your GPS to know. I've always called long before I wrote Let's Be Peace. I've always called everybody my teammates. Whether it's I have a holistic medical doctor, and I used to have traditional medical doctors, acupuncture, massage. Just realize that they're your teammates. Find out about them. And go with what resonates with you. There is no such thing as one size fits all. It's one of the things that is, I think, so challenging for our medical system, is because of just the volumes of people they treat. They have created standards, and in a lot of cases, those standards work for maybe the majority, but not necessarily for me, and not necessarily for you. And it's up to us to know what that is. It's going inside and listening and going, well, this does make sense to me, or this doesn't, and trusting that. That becomes, when we're bombarded with things, shoulds, when we're kids, you should do this and you should do that. Mm-hmm. It makes it more difficult even as adults. We're just used to listening to the shoulds, rather than what feels right to us. And the more we can encourage our little ones to trust themselves. And I'm not, I have stepchildren, but I'm not, I've not raised children. And so I don't know how difficult that is, and I'm sure it is. But the more we can instill trust, we can teach them to trust themselves. And, do what you need to do to help them be healthy, but let them know that they are individual, and that what they're feeling is real, and try not to poo-poo that. I stopped because you look like you were going to ask a question.
I was like trying to unmute myself. My stomach is grumbling.
Oh, right.
It's like, yes,
all this. Laura.
Sorry?
That's a message. It's past your lunchtime.
Oh, I kind of eat breakfast, and then I don't eat until almost supper during these days, just because of where it fits in my day. Yeah. Like, well, there's no time for lunch. But I do tend to have like a protein smoothie or something.
Oh, good.
That there's more than just water, some sort of sustenance. But I also feel like that's what peace is. That's what these conversations are. It's some sort of spiritual inner sustenance so that I feel satisfied with life, so that I can feel more of that peace with myself, with the people that I've chosen to have around me, with the type of work that I've chosen. I'm even on like the more fashion stuff at this point.
I love your choice of hats. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, this hat I really love. And then I put this little pin that has the same color as my dress.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm learning from Shelby, one of the other ladies here in the Blue Talks community, to like actually style myself instead of just put on something because it fits or it was given to me.
You were wearing the last boot camp. You had quite a few wonderful hats, I remember.
Yeah, I have. Oh, my cosplay hats. Yes. I don't do the cosplay as much. Yeah, dress up in costumes. But the Mario hat is definitely one that people recognize. So, Karen, we're at the point of your interview where I want to know, where can we find you? And of course, your favorite way to communicate.
Okay. The website, www.letsbepeace.com, is a good way. Sign up, get your free PDF copy of Peace Tips. That would be great. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't have those addresses. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is through the website, letsbepeace.com. And you can purchase the books from there. The books you can purchase from Amazon. Just go to Karen Lee Cohen on Amazon, but be sure to use the Lee because there's a lot of Karen Cohens in Amazon. But as far as I know, I'm the only Karen Lee Cohen, and you can get the books there. But if you sign up at the website, then you'll get notices about the next book and about one of my short-term goals is to have a monthly, and probably on Facebook, but maybe via Zoom, have a monthly just come and talk about peace. I want people to have a safe place to talk peace. Just whatever they're thinking, about how to obtain the peace inside. Prefer not to talk about peace versus wars and what's going on the outside. I'd like it to be a very personal and private forum for people to just express what they're feeling and what is blocking them from being peace inside, and what we can do to help them get to the point where it's not going to be 24/7, or at least it isn't for me yet. But I'm pretty peaceful most of the time. I just did a presentation to Rotary Club, has a online peace organization, and I just did a presentation to them on the 15th. And what was neat is quite a few of the people, because after the presentation, they did Q&A, and quite a few of the people said that they felt peaceful just listening to me. And I can't think of a better compliment than that. And my greatest joy is when somebody will call after they read the book and said, I can't get very far because I keep rereading it, because there's so many levels of information for people. And that was the goal of the book. And that's why we're going to do the Let's Be Joy book. And I'm going to be one of Corey's books. And that's The Business Life and the Universe book with Janet Atwood and Marcy Shimoff. I'm going to be in that. I don't know when that's going to be out. But what I wrote, the chapter I wrote, was about let's be, rather than let's be peace or let's be joy, because I'm being told this is going to be a trilogy. And Let's Be Peace was the first one. Let's Be Joy, I know is going to be the second one, and I think the third one's going to be Let's Be Love.
Oh,
but we shall see. So the chapter that I wrote for the business book was about, what does Let's Be mean? and, in peace and love and joy. And we'll have a website, Let's Be, because there's so many generations of that we can do.
Yep. One of my favorite songs from, I want to say like the 2000s, was a song called Just Be. Because it was like this soft, kind of airy, feels like the heavens are talking to you kind of thing. It was a beautiful, beautiful song. But Karen, I want to say thank you so much for this interview. Always a pleasure. And I love that the book is like right there and I can see everything the whole time you're talking. Very much a visual person. So I will call this the end of the main interview, but I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes so that we can talk about some of our favorite things or some moments in our interview that stood out to you. So this time I'm going to start with you, Karen. What is something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
Well, I love your energy, Laura. So you make this very easy, and I love the way you brought out almost all the peace tips, and I think probably all of the peace tips, and that you and Catherine both resonated to the love and trust yourself. Because that's the message that I put in all my social media now, along with hashtag Let's Be Peace, and just that loving and trusting ourselves is a way to be peaceful, and I believed also healthier. So you brought out everything that I was interested in discussing. So thank you both.
Oh, you're welcome. Katharina, what about you? What's something that stood out to you?
Oh, it's just such an important message. Such an important message. That and being able to tune in those quiet places and to hear. We spent some time talking about the ways that we hear the messages, the information, our GPS, and how just critical that is to walking our own path, because we're all taught how to be like other people, but we're only one of us and we're supposed to be us. And the only way that we get that is through listening to that GPS and trusting and loving ourselves. So I love it. And thank you for putting this out there.
Thank you, Katharina.
I think part of my favorite part every single time is that I know that you're an award-winning TV producer, and it's just like, yay! But then there's always the question of, well, how do you go from there to talking about peace and being more spiritual? And it just seems like two totally different types of stereotypes of people in the same person. And so I love to highlight that and just celebrate you for being that multifaceted version of you, Karen.
Thank you, Laura. It's always a joy seeing you.
And then what was my other favorite part? Oh, when you were talking about not feeling alone. I can tell you that just this year, somebody described this year for me on my birthday as the F at 40s. And I was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. But finally this year, I'm not feeling alone for the first time in probably 4 decades, maybe 3 decades. I don't know. I lost track, because there's been so much growth on the inside to do exactly what you said, to love myself just as I am, all the past versions and the present version, and to learn to trust myself that I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by support inside and out and up above and everything else that you believe. And that feels good. Oh my God, does that feel good?
And it doesn't matter when you come to it, and going in and out of it's fine too. Just remembering to love and trust yourself when you can.
Yep.
We all do it in our own timing.
Yep. Well, when I was probably like early teens, I thought I'd die alone. I thought that was going to be my future. No, just the way life has held me and supported me through all of the ups and downs. Yeah. I don't feel alone anymore, because I know that even on my bad days, I have me. Finally. I'm like, go me. Yeah, give myself a pat on the back, love myself. Oh, you're so cute, all that.
Yep.
So celebrating you. Thank you so much, Karen. We are going to end the day together, and I'd love to chat with you both behind the scenes just for a few minutes to do a check-in. But as a reference to yesterday, we talked about trolls back in the 90s. I still have my favorite troll.
Oh my gosh. I remember those.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was downstairs and was like, oh, I have to bring it upstairs. He's just so cute. And he fits on like the back of a pen.
Oh yeah. I remember those. Yeah, you could write with them.
Right? And then he'd dance and his hair would go everywhere. Okay, so thank you to my guest co-host, Katharina. Thank you to all of our interviewees. Thank you to everyone watching live and on the replay. It's always such a fun day. We have laughs, we have tears, we have everything in between. But I want to remind people, this is just day 3. We have 2 more days left. So tomorrow is day 4, same bat channel, same bat time. So we are on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. It starts at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we go to approximately this time, which is time conversion, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. And we'll have more entrepreneurs, more change makers, more stories, more reasons why people have the messages that they do. And I think we'll have more practices and challenges and get into the different ways that we like to share. So again, thank you to everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Much love. Bye. And then I click end stream and sing and dance. And I go,